Chapter 556. River Styx's words made Wei Fengyang perspire profusely. She wanted to retort subconsciously, but when she saw River Styx's smiling face, she sobered up a little. She knew that the person sitting in front of her was a killer, so she dared not act rashly in front of him. However, she did not believe River Styx's words. On the contrary, Eighth Aunt Deng, who was listening at the side, believed it without a doubt. She understood what her good friend Master Yu Qing said earlier. After Mingyi finished speaking, he did not look at Wei Fengyang again. He turned to Deng Bagu and said, "What you are asking for is not difficult. It is just that you cannot owe the old ancestor a favor. It would not be good to bear karma. I'll point you in the right direction. Wherever there's a fated chance, there's bound to be death." River Styx stretched out his hand and waved. The sky demon's telekinesis passed through the void and followed a breath in the unseen world. He found the place where Wei Fengyang hid the heavenly book's jade box. With the subtle telekinesis, he ignored the many prohibitions set by Wei Fengyang and took the jade box in his hand. When Wei Fengyang saw the Guangqing jade box that she had carefully kept and treated like her life appear in River Styx's hand, her eyeballs almost popped out. She disregarded her identity and stood up from the cloud bed. She was dumbfounded and had a speechless expression. She seemed to want to take out the jade box to take a look, but she was hindered by River Styx's demonic power and forced herself to hold back. It was no wonder that Wei Fengyang was so shocked. In reality, there was no one in this realm who could take an item through the realm. It looked like a small skill like the 5 ghost transporting, but in reality, it had bypassed countless vicious prohibitions set by Wei Fengyang. Moreover, it had to completely suppress the prohibitions set by Guangqing Zi to seal the jade box. Wei Fengyang was just a third-rate person. What kind of supernatural power was Guangqing Great Sage? Not to mention a cultivator who had yet to ascend. How many arhats, bodhisattvas, golden immortals, and divine immortals in the upper realm could bypass his prohibitions? River Styx's sky demon's telekinesis seemed to have taken the item and moved it over, but in reality, it was a supreme application of the Buddha's demon's telekinesis. As the saying goes, turning the false into reality, creating a world with your thoughts, the path of psyche power was very different from the fundamental chi of the mystic door. In the past, when Gautama Buddha held a Dharma conference on Spirited Mountain and smiled while holding a flower, the other Buddhas did not understand what he meant. Only Maha Kassapa understood what he meant. That was how the branch of Zen Buddhism, which was taught outside the sect, came into being. The Buddha and the devil were one. The principle behind this could be explained by the saying, "When the flower blooms, I see the person, and the person sees me." The Sixth Patriarch altar scripture said, "It is not the banner that moves, nor the wind that moves, but the heart that moves." It was to view everything in the world as the fluctuations of one's thoughts. What one could see in the world was real, and what one could not see was an illusion. Everything in the world, love and hate, matter and appearance, were just thoughts in one's heart. River Styx's ability to turn reality into nothingness, and then turn nothingness into reality, would be the most profound dharma in Buddhism. The wheel of time, void and reality, bodhisattva of the 2 realms of time. Form is not different from emptiness, and emptiness is not different from form. Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. Perception, thought, action, and knowledge are also the same, the supreme dharma. Even in the sky demon mystic technique, it was known as the terrifying supernatural power of the free sky demon desire worldview. The principle behind it was simple. The dharma of Buddhism was to create something out of nothing, and it was infinitely wonderful. It was often belittled by the heretics as an illusion, but it was not. Everything in the world was formed by the great Tao. Where the Tao was, everything existed. The Buddha could use the Buddha's light in his heart to guide the Buddha's Dharmakaya. He could control his thoughts, and he could move wherever he wanted. He could form a Buddhist land with his palm and a world with sand. The various supernatural powers of Buddhism in the world, such as the heart's light, the Buddha's light, the Buddhist land in the palm, and the eternal sands world were all based on this principle. Everything in the world was a thought, and what people knew was only the appearance. All the Buddha's light, dharma, and various supernatural powers were nothing more than creating something out of nothing. The eternal sands world was the appearance. So how could the Buddhist land not be the appearance? The appearance of the sand turning into the appearance of the Buddhist land was just a thought. The various prohibitions of Wei Fengyang and the great sage Guangqingzi were all because of the mystic door's worldview of Qi creating all things. After River Styx changed the Guangqing jade box's lust with his psyche power, the jade box no longer existed. It was like a tree without roots or water without a source. Without something to rely on, how could it exist? When River Styx kept the non-jade box in her bosom and rediscovered the appearance of the jade box, the Guangqing jade box then appeared again. When Wei Fengyang saw this, she suspected that River Styx had found an identical jade box to deceive her. If the real Buddha and Bodhisattva were here, she would probably be scared out of her wits. She would worship the Free Sky Demon King as a Buddha and worship Bo Sun as the demon ancestor. This was no longer the Dharma of Buddha's light creating the world with a thought, but the original form of Bo Sun, the legend of Brahma creating the world with a dream. The deity level of River Styx, Chunong, and even Adam who descended into Chunong in this world might not have such an ability. The deity level's worldview was still based on materialism. He was not as good as a demon like River Styx, who cultivated the psyche power. He could make use of his inner, multidimensional observer to transcend the essence of a universe. At this moment, some of the supernatural powers that River Styx could achieve were not attainable by the deity level. River Styx touched the jade box with her right hand and opened it. In an instant, a bright light that looked like a lamp flew out from the jade box. It was dazzling and swirling. It paused slightly in front of River Styx and was about to leave. River Styx quickly said, "Wait, great sage Guangqing." The golden light paused and stopped. Smiling, Mingi sent the connection in the essence of his primordial spirit out through an inexplicable existence in the unseen world. The 9 golden flowers fell down with a gust of purple qi and returned to the box. Wei Fengyang was so scared that she almost knelt on the ground when she heard River Styx call him the great sage Guangqing. Fortunately, it's not like I don't have someone backing me up. I think on account of Cult Master Chun, the various emperors of the higher realm won't be too serious with me. Even if they really come, I'm not afraid. If I provoke Tianxi or even that first existence, I won't be the one to suffer. River Styx's heart was filled with malice as she said, Long Brow Jinren has already reached an agreement with me. With the invasion of the Master God as a link, we'll work together to plot against the Master God. As long as we don't go against the general trend of this realm, we're still allies. River Styx raised her head and looked at the 2 women who could barely sit still on the cloud bed. She closed the jade box gently and said, "The cause and effect is simple. Eighth Dang, your physical body is stiff and your primordial embryo is damaged. The only thing that can save you is the soul gathering and form refining pill left by great sage Guangqing in this jade box. The others are either extremely rare or you can't afford it. Only with this soul gathering and form refining pill, as long as you suffer from the devil's fire again, you'll have some fate. That's why I said that your trouble should be solved by these 2 clouds. However, since you've come to beg me today, I'll give you another way out." She then turned her head and said to Wei Fengyang, "The Guangqing jade box that you've asked for is like trying to catch the moon in the water. With great sage Guangqing's attention in the upper bound, even if your mana is 100 times stronger, it'll only be a wedding dress for others. However, because you've met me, I'll give you a chance of survival." After saying that, she wiped the jade box with her right hand, and it turned into a piece of stone. She handed it to Wei Fengyang and said, "I've personally set up this prohibition. I've used my supreme psyche power to change the appearance of this box from jade to stone. Guangqing's heavenly book, magic weapon, and panacea are all in this jade box. Therefore, even if you use your supreme fire to melt this stone, it'll only be a piece of stone. Only my Tao of Talisman can turn this box back into a piece of jade. This talisman was transformed by a thought. River Styx attached a thought to the jade box to change its nature and redefine the concept of this item. Apart from him, even Longbrow Immortal would not be able to solve this prohibition. River Styx handed the talisman to 8th Aunt Deng and said, "Now, both of you hold the key to this box. Guangqing's relic can only be born when the talisman and the stone box are united. Then, you'll be the other's disaster. If 8th Aunt Deng asks Wei Fengyang to face the disaster, you'll be considered to have passed the disaster of fire deviation and the disaster of being possessed by the devil. You'll no longer be distracted by the devil's fire and the trouble of rescuing a Mei. You can save yourself without the 2 clouds. As for you, Wei Fengyang, if you get the jade talisman other than 8th Aunt Deng, although if there'll be other disasters, you'll have a chance to escape. Other disasters have their own cause and effect, so I won't bother about it." Just as 8th Aunt Deng picked up the talisman in her hand, she saw the talisman unfold and burrow into her chest. Then, a gust of warm air hit her and actually regenerated most of the Yin fire, making her primordial spirit feel relaxed. River Styx then added with a smile, "To be fair, the talisman I gave you can help you suppress the Yin fire devil for 16 hours a day. With the help of pure yang, your corporeal body can move freely for the time being. This magic power is not inferior to Wei Fengyang's." He stood up slowly and said with a smile, "Now that I've helped both of you to pass the disasters, as for whether you'll work together to open the jade box and take what you need, or fight each other for what's in the other's hands, it's not my concern anymore." With a wave of his big sleeve, he took 8th Aunt Deng and turned into a light to escape. Halfway through, he flung his big sleeve and threw 8th Aunt Deng on the small Changbai Mountain. He then left while singing. Chapter 557. After leaving Green Snail Valley, he did not go far. He found a place to hide from the wind and sat down. He turned the celestial demon painting into a canopy and put it above his head. Then, he started to calculate. Using the demon consciousness on Dorgan, he projected his primordial spirit to Liaodong, which was hundreds of thousands of miles away. At this time, Dorgan suddenly woke up from his trance. He felt inexplicably anxious and could not breathe. Or when he opened the door, he saw dozens of tall barbarians standing outside the tent. It was a big camp, but it was silent. Occasionally, there would be 1 or 2 children crying, but they were quickly covered by their parents. It was supposed to be a bustling camp, but now it was like a dead land. The yin qi was rolling, revealing an indescribable mystery. Dorgan was a demon corpse, so he was used to it. Instead, he felt comfortable. Rhe quickly took a few steps forward, using the demonic corpse's demonic qi to command the nearby corpse soldiers to form an array. The moment he returned from Zhangjiago, he had already refined all of the slave establishment disciples to death. Then he had slaughtered thousands of old and young as blood sacrifices to the yin corpses, refining the thousands of soldiers under his command into demonic corpses. Or there were tens of thousands of people in the plain white flag and dozens of soldiers. After Dorgan turned into a demon corpse, he became violent and bloodthirsty. He no longer saw himself as a human being. He was closer to the demon corpses and the yin corpses. His subordinates of the Nuzan tribe were all killed by him. There were dozens of stone mills in the camp. They were all huge green stones that Dorgan and his army of corpses had dug out from the deep mountains. Or just the mouth of the mill was the size of a person. It was stained with blood, and there were dark brown traces that were not cleaned. Or de Inbu, is today's blood food ready? Dorgan casually asked a tall demon corpse next to him. Huang Taiji has been afraid of us for a long time. Nirachi gave me dozens of records, but he took away many of them. Those Nuzan tribe betrayed me when they saw that I was losing my power. Damn it! Today, I will eat them to accompany the wine. Or the tall Yin corpse lowered its head in silence. When Dorgan was refining the Yin corpses, because of the spell Mingi had taught him, he had to torture the materials to make the Yin corpses cruelly so that they could keep their intelligence. As Mingi had expected, Dorgan was even more cruel than the spell Mingi had taught him. RDA Inbu was a trusted subordinate of Dorgan, but he was roasted alive by Dorgan. Even after being turned into a demon corpse for a long time, he still did not recover his vocal cords. Are these demonic corpses still retain their intelligence? Although they still had their memories, they no longer had any humanity. Not only that, but the strong resentment they felt when they were tortured by Dorgan had invaded their souls. Although their souls were strengthened, making them more suitable for refining demonic corpses, they were extremely bloodthirsty and cruel after becoming demonic corpses. Upon receiving Dorgan's order, they immediately pulled out the female soldiers of the plain yellow banner from the wooden cage. Seeing these black and blue monsters reaching out their hands and pulling people out of the cage, the slaves in the cage screamed. One of them, Ijun, shouted desperately, "Dorgan, you monster! Are you murdered the Khan? You deserve to die." Ah! Dorgan heard the man shout and stopped. He came to him and looked at his face carefully. "I know you, Shurtai. You are Huang Taiji's loyal dog. This time, you covered him when he retreated from the battlefield. As my subordinate, Ijun was the first to join Huang Taiji after Nurhasai died. When I led my men into the yellow platform and the military tent, you tried to stop me. I didn't expect you to still be alive. I admire a good man like you. How about this? I'll give you a chance to be my man." Then he waved his hand and said, "Take him down, wash him with an iron comb for 3 days, then bury him in the golden dragon vein. When he wakes up, give him his family as blood food. He has 3 sons. After sucking up the blood of the same origin as him, he will become a powerful demon. Our demon, you will be punished by God." Shurtai shouted crazily. He used all the insulting words he could find in the barbarian language. Dorgan was not angry, but calmly said, "Shurtai, you hate me now, but when you wake up again, you will still be my good dog and loyal to me. You will be a really good subordinate. You will be absolutely loyal to me and follow my orders. You will not be like now, barbaric, stupid, and have the despicable habits of many people. In the tribe, I have had enough of betrayal, intrigue, and all kinds of selfish and stupid ideas. Only the zombie soldiers will always be loyal and true. They will follow my orders and rule the tribe for me. I will never worry about them betraying or disobeying me. This is how a subordinate should be, and how the whole tribe should be." After saying so much, Dorgan seemed to be a little tired. He waved his hand, and the zombie soldiers dragged the rest of the female and put their feet into the mouth of the stone mill. Then, as the female screamed and cried crazily, the zombie soldiers slowly moved the stone mill. In an instant, the sound of crying was 10 times louder. Dorgan showed a bloodthirsty smile and enjoyed watching them struggle and curse. The thick blood slowly oozed out from the grindstone and flowed into a stone bowl. Soon, the bowl was filled to the brim. Immediately, a zombie soldier served the bowl to Dorgan. Dorgan enjoyed the blood while refining his evil zombie aura. After 3 bowls of blood, Dorgan waved his hand. The thousands of demon corpses in the camp all received their share of the blood, according to their status. River Styx, who was far away in the snow mountain, confirmed that most of the Nuzan tribes in Liaodong had been taken over by Dorgan and turned into a living hell. Huang Taiji had been tortured by Dorgan for 3 days, and he wanted to turn it into the most evil zombie of all, the cruel zombie king. He buried it in the dragon vein of the back gene ancestral dragon vein to nourish its zombie energy. River Styx casually destroyed the demon zombie king's control over it, and even injected some evil thoughts into its consciousness. Seeing the cruel zombie king tremble, and its speed of absorbing Inchi increased several times, River Styx sighed. Dorgan's childish racism needs to be corrected. We must let him know that not only humans can betray, corpses can too. In this world, only those who are truly dead will never betray us. Chapter 558. P for decileters equals N Bo Smo DQ T $7. Sitting in the immortal mansion, the Nanming Li fire blazed in the cauldron in front of him. Several shadows of magic weapons gradually took shape in the cauldron. He had been refining this cauldron of magic weapons for several months. He had refined the essence of his nascent embryo 36 times. This was the last refinement. The few magic weapons that had appeared before were just leftovers. Chunong had refined them without much trouble. Only the few magic weapons in the cauldron could be considered as the treasures of the mystic door. Ever since my primordial spirit was split into two, the major matters in this world were all handled by River Styx. Of course, it was because it was not easy to manage with my identity, and this world was too valuable. It was not worth losing too much for the sake of the Lord God. It was also to protect the deity, and to let River Styx bear the consequences. But after all, some of the consequences were related to the deity, and River Styx could not bear the burden. If I plan well, River Styx will be dismembered in the blink of an eye and enter the world controlled by the Lord God. I will have to take over the affairs of this Middle-earth. If that is the case, it is better to prepare early. Chunong watched as the fire in front of him gradually subsided. After 9 days of refinement, the magic weapons in the cauldron were gradually perfected. A shiny golden ring jumped out of the fire. It was entangled with a red caltrip and fell in front of Chunong. The strange light gradually faded away, leaving only 2 inconspicuous objects on the brocade handkerchief. Our heaven and earth ring, red armillary sash. Chunong sighed. At the end of the day, I still have to learn from Tai Junren. He casually cast a spell to seal the fire in the cauldron. He waited for the rest of the magic weapons in the cauldron to finish nourishing. He went straight out of the cauldron and went to the main hall. At this time, the immortal mansion of the South Sea was complete. The 9 floors of the palace were majestic and magnificent. There were exotic flowers and herbs everywhere. There were rare elixirs in the Middle-earth overseas. It could be said that the Purple Cloud Palace was the essence of the South Sea for thousands of years. The cold spring in the eye of the sea had been moved to the courtyard behind the main hall and turned into a cold pond. Beside the pond were dozens of spiritual herbs that were fond of een and cold. In the pond, there were also 3-star beauties transformed by Chunong. After the opening of the mansion, Chunong used the true fire of the sun and Nanmingli fire to transform the jellyfishes Xian Yin in their inner elixir, combining yin and yang. Now, these different species, like the golden whiskered slaves, had transformed into human beings and were serving as maids in the palace. Usually, he would cultivate in the pool, but his original body had turned into a strange type of frost serpent, swimming freely in the pool. The South Sea Immortal Abode was not like the Moon Island Immortal Abode. It was a place that Chunong had created for himself. With the 9 Tunes Yellow River Array as its base, not even golden immortals would dare to offend it. Most of the treasures that Chunong had plundered from this world were stored here, not to mention the numerous restrictive spells and countless magical treasures and arrays. The Pearl Palace was built with beautiful jade, and the curtains were woven with shark caltrips. The Eye of the Sea was tens of thousands of miles wide. It had become a refuge for the nearby sea tribes and people. In the past, the battle between Chunong and River Styx on the barren reef in the Eye of the Sea raised dozens of islands and reefs from the seabed, surrounding the southeast of the Eye of the Sea. There were thousands of ordinary kilometers of land. Now, many people from the mainland had migrated to this place and established a country here. After Chunong left the palace, he cast a series of spells and raised several signs. A waterproof arch fell in front of the main hall, sealing off most of the pavilions in the main hall. 360 stone lamps lit up, surrounding the 9 floors of the palace. The elixirs, elixir rooms, treasure vaults, cultivation pavilions, and ancient books were all hidden in the secret space opened by the 9 Tunes Yellow River Array. Except for the places where a few disciples often came in and out, the other places were instantly hidden. Chunong was naturally not afraid of people sneaking in. Now that he was going out, he opened the restrictive spells of the Immortal Abode. The complete 9 levels palace was instantly divided into countless independent spaces by the 9 Tunes Yellow River Array. Arlingsha was alarmed by the movement and quickly came out to see. When she saw Chunong, she quickly bowed down and said, "Greetings, master." Chunong saw that she was diligent in her cultivation, so he gave her a few words of advice. Then he said, I have recently calculated that our sect's great enemy, the ancestor River Styx, has many arrangements in the mainland. If he succeeds, there will be a lot of unrest overseas. I have been invited by the leader of the mainland, a May sect, to go to the mainland and destroy that old devil's plan. Moreover, I have 3 disciples in the mainland and many good friends. I am afraid that River Styx will bully them. I can't let him harm them. You will guard the door in the mansion and don't interact with evil people. Cultivate in peace. If there is something important, you can go to the main hall and ask for my help. Your master will know. Or when he finished, a ray of golden light flew out of his sleeve and released the golden boat of fate. It carried the red python in his sleeve and the round light behind his head and went straight to the mainland. The golden boat of fate had been carefully refined by Chunong, and now it had extraordinary restrictions that corresponded to the stars. Under the conveyance light, it could travel hundreds of thousands of miles in the mainland in an instant. Chunong did not go anywhere else. He first stopped at his old residence, Chixiao Mountain, and went to the Taoist temple on the mountain. For many years, there were only traces of people. The steps of the Taoist temple were covered with moss, and a mottled red wooden door was closed. Ronly, the 2 old plum trees in front of the door were now green and full of leaves. Chun-Ong gently pushed open the wooden door and released the restriction on the door. The situation inside was the same as before. The lamp in the main hall was still bright. He gently touched it with his right hand, and the Samadhi purifying devil's true fire turned into sparks of fire and went straight to the lamp. Suddenly, the light was bright. At this time, it was exactly 3 years since Chun-Ong left Chixiao Mountain. Standing in the courtyard, Chun-Ong glanced at the deserted and dilapidated Chixiao Mountain. Suddenly, the 2 magic weapons in his sleeves flashed. Chun-Ong was not surprised. He took them out and threw them up. They turned into a strange light and escaped to the back of the mountain. In the falling cloud cave of Chixiao Mountain, the female cultivator Meng Xiaochong was shocked to see a colorful cloud mushroom shining brightly outside the cave. On top of the cloud mushroom, there was a big jade egg jumping nonstop. Her beloved crane hurriedly landed on top of the cloud mushroom and used its wings to comfort the jade egg, but could not hold it down. What happened to He Sheng? Meng Xiaochong hurried to the cloud and asked with a frown. The origin of this Yunji was very strange. It was grown in front of the cave of falling clouds from a cauldron of rare pills. It had a deep affinity with He Sheng. Meng Xiaochong had long discovered that He Sheng could only sleep soundly on this Yunji. He Sheng was still a jade egg, but he was already very naughty. He was usually naughty and did not even get in the way when he was still an egg. However, he had never made such a big move like today. Before she could see clearly, she saw a golden light wrapped in a red light shoot into the jade egg from outside the cave. Before she could see clearly, it turned into a shadow and disappeared into the jade egg. Then she heard a cracking sound. Meng Xiaochong's beloved crane jumped in shock. It thought that the jade egg was broken by something. Unexpectedly, a crack appeared on He Sheng's crystal-clear jade egg shell, but it seemed to be opening from the inside out. Then, a small hand holding a shiny golden steel ring smashed through the jade egg and rushed out. Chapter 559. When Meng Xiaochong saw the child who looked like he was carved out of jade standing there, she was extremely fond of him. Not to mention that the man and the crane in the cave of falling clouds looked at him as if he was an eyeball. Even Jingming would come back to visit this little disciple from time to time when he was traveling around the Middle Earth. Even when Chun-Ong had left the Sea King for 3 years, he still remembered to come back to visit this little fellow that he had refined with a single furnace of pills. It could be said that he was doted on by many. Once Pooh was born, Chun-Ong had already arranged treasures for him. Only 2 or 3 sects in the Middle Earth Tao sects had the confidence to be so extravagant. If Chun-Ong did not occupy the orthodox position overseas, he would not have been able to reward the younger generation with treasures. This kind of behavior had always been done by the tycoons of the Amay sect. A second-generation disciple could casually give out a rare treasure of the heavenly abode, which was a treasure that had been painstakingly refined. Meng Xiaoshang was indescribably happy. She looked at Sheng He over and over again. The more she looked, the more she liked him. She wanted to hug him in her arms. After a long time, she recalled the strange phenomenon from before and said, when something happened to Sheng He, two extraordinary treasures came to him. There must be a reason for this. Although he has an extraordinary background and is an inborn saint that was born from feeling, the cause and effect are simple. It was either given to him by Master Jingming or by Senior Chenong. I saw that the golden light of the treasures came from the foot of the mountain. Could it be that Chun Daoyu has returned from overseas? She then put Sheng He down carefully. The five-colored cloud, Ganoderma, suddenly matured and fell. 5 clouds of Ganoderma gathered together and suddenly wrapped around the little Sheng He. The roots of the Ganoderma turned into a ribbon. The spirit crane at the side picked it up in its beak, just like the best swaddling clothes. Even though Meng Xiaoshang was surprised to see this, she knew that Sheng's background was not ordinary. Even though this strange phenomenon was even more surprising, it was not something that was out of the ordinary. Thus, she instructed Sheng to follow her down the mountain to the Shixiao monastery. Meng Xiaoshang walked out of the Cloudfall cave and arrived at a green plain. Below her was a precipitous cliff. The plain was filled with luxuriant plants, spirit herbs, and rosy clouds. Meng Xiaoshang stomped her foot, and a copper bangle fell from her slender wrist and fell to the ground. 5 colored clouds immediately appeared from that spot. It was the 5-cloud bangle that was given to her by Clarity and refined by Chun Ong Meng. Xiaoshang rode on it and flew towards the Shixiao monastery at a moderate pace. When she was near the monastery, she could see a lamp lit up in the ancient monastery and a small amount of incense slowly rising. There were footprints on the moss in front of the door, and the mottled wooden door was half closed. She knew that someone had already moved in. She landed on the patio in front of the main hall and saw a young Taoist priest pushing the door open and walking out of the main hall. She then nodded and cupped her fists. Long time no see. Chen Daoyu is still as elegant as ever. Have you returned from overseas? Chenong laughed and said, I have built up a large family business overseas. Recently I have foreseen that Sheng will be born. I do not intend to give this disciple to Jingming to be a little monk. It just so happens that I have made a big enemy overseas, who is causing the Central Earth to be restless, so I rushed back before Jingming and took Sheng as my disciple. That old monk Jingming has been begging for alms for 3 years, and he only has a few monasteries. Now that I have 2 or 3 immortal abodes overseas that occupy a few hundred miles, I like to see how he's going to compete with me this time. Meng Xiaoshang covered her mouth and laughed. Master Jingming has been practicing asceticism for 3 years. Now that the situation in Middle-earth is unstable, even the people of good faith don't have any surplus food. I'm afraid they can't even build a monastery. Senior, not only do you have 3 ancient monasteries, you even have an immortal abode overseas. I think he won't be able to compete with you. After joking for a while, she said seriously, Fellow Taoist, your magic power is far above mine. I can't be of much help to someone who can be your enemy, but I can at least do my best. Can you tell me who this person is? Chenong smiled. This person is Gu Hanba, who was born from the corpse of the rogue cultivator Gu Haozi. He was sealed in the eye of South Sea under the 10,000-year-old cold spring by the senior, immortal Reverend Qizhong. However, Xianyuan the Great, the cult master of the West Kongtong evil sect, sent his disciple to try to unseal him. He sacrificed the blood of an evil art that he had been practicing recently. Unexpectedly, Hanba was not an ordinary person. He killed his disciple and used it to transform into the supreme demon body of Great Azura. At that time, I was also attracted by him, but I noticed his trick. I used Reverend Qizhang's restriction to suppress and seal him. Later on, one of his primordial spirits escaped, so I went to pursue and kill him. But it's a pity that his fate didn't run out. Instead, he killed countless overseas fellow Taoists and cultivated the 2 unprecedented orthodoxies of Blood Demon and Sky Demon. In the end, after a battle in the Eye of South Sea, I was lucky enough to drive him out. but he saved my physical body and escaped to Middle-earth. Chenong explained the incident in a few words. Meng Xiaoshang was suddenly enlightened and said, "I've heard about this devil. I only heard that he has unparalleled power. Countless overseas fellow Taoists were killed by him. Even the two grandmasters of the evil sect and the demon path, Xianyuan the Great and Venerable Poisonous Dragon, were killed by him. Both their bodies and spirits were destroyed by him. The three senior immortals of East Sea went to subdue the devil, but they returned empty-handed. After hearing that he came to Middle-earth, many fellow Taoists were anxious. Xianyuan the Great and Venerable Poisonous Dragon were both senior cultivators. One of them was the leader of the demon path in the West and was famous. The other one had been cultivating in seclusion for many years and was not to be underestimated. But he died in the hands of this devil. People said that he was the most powerful devil in the past 1,000 years. I didn't expect him to be a great enemy of Senior. Senior's magical power is admirable to defeat this devil." Meng Xiaoshang still felt guilty and said, "I have a few overseas fellow Taoists and have heard about it. There was a famous overseas, unorthodox sect called Ancestor Baiyin. He invited his fellow Taoists to attend his 100th birthday banquet, but he met old devil River Styx. All of them were killed, and his entire family died. Old Man Baiyin was also an experienced individual immortal, but he couldn't fight back. Therefore, he went into seclusion overseas. Countless people escaped. When they heard that he came to Middle-earth, many of them closed their doors and ignored the outside world. But I also heard that a few highly respected seniors wanted to eliminate this devil." Chenong sighed inwardly. Old Man Baiyin was actually a famous senior individual cultivator. River Styx had many casualties, but when was it Old Man Baiyin's turn to be ranked? Among the people who died overseas, Baiyin might not even be in the top 10. He also heard her tell him the names of those virtuous and respectable seniors, asking him to contact them to kill the demon. Chenong thought about it for a long time, but he could not recognize any of them. It seemed that they were people of the same generation as Old Man Baiyin. Our old demon Chen's eyesight is very high. Only people like the three immortals and the two elders would have some respect for them. People like Baiyin, with his ability, did not even bother to remember their names. But Chenong could not say directly, so he found an excuse and said, "A few days ago, Reverend Miao Iavame wrote me a letter saying that Old Devil had killed many people in Liaodong. He tricked 3 of my disciples to help him kill tens of thousands of the Jiannu army. He wanted to use karma to frame me. He also created a heavenly devil extreme bliss cult by the river. It caused great harm and created an illusory world to trick people to die and send their souls into it." Chapter 560. Hearing what Chenong had said, Meng Xiaoshang could no longer mention her seniors who were highly respected and had years of cultivation. Chenong also secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He had seen the figures of the unorthodox sect before. Those seniors who had cultivated for many years were mostly arrogant and had all kinds of unconventional temperaments. Chenong himself had a bad temper. When the time came, he would kill a few of them and cause a few bloody disasters. It would not be good if he did not have the Netherworld River to take the thunder for him. He smiled and said, "He Sheng was born with a fairy-like demeanor and was nurtured by the qi of heaven and earth. It was fine before he was born, but after he was born, the mysteries of heaven gradually became clear. I don't know how many monks, nuns, and beggars came to ask for money, wanting to trick my disciple to go back and be their disciple. Today, when his jade egg was opened, the qi of clear spirit soared 3,000 feet into the sky. Even though it was covered by the heaven and earth ring and red armillary sash that I refined, and the unorthodox sects didn't know about it, it still alarmed many bald donkeys who had years of cultivation. Those bald donkeys are the most difficult to deal with. They're obviously poor, but they have all kinds of schemes in the dark. As his adoptive mother, you must not be tricked by others. I have a few immortal abodes overseas and countless properties, and they're the most obvious." After saying this, he smiled and sighed. If it wasn't because of Jingming's face, there would be no need to go through so much trouble. He was nurtured by my cauldron of elixir qi, and he is fated with me. Not to mention taking him as a disciple, it is also reasonable for me to raise him as a son. What a pity! What a pity! Since we have agreed previously, let's wait for Jingming for a few years. When he grows up, you can let him choose for himself. Meng Xiaoshang knew that what he said was reasonable, but she was still closer to Jingming. Chenang's origin was too mysterious. He was originally a silly Taoist child in a small temple at the foot of the mountain. After he realized his previous life, he became unfathomable, and she felt that he was like a bottomless abyss. Even a terrifying person like Old Demon River Styx, who had the same background as Drought Demon and Extraterrestrial Demon, was not his match and was expelled overseas. She really didn't know the origin of such a person in his previous life. Meng Xiaoshang calculated that Chun Ong had only realized his previous life for 3.5 years, but his cultivation and magic power were already as deep as the sky and as deep as the sea. Such old age was shocking. Meng Xiaoshang had also heard some rumors about the spiritual immortal realm and even the Purple Mansion realm. The son of the celestial lord of the upper realm, giant wood god of the eastern wasteland, was just like that. Thinking about it this way, the inside story was extremely terrifying. Sometimes, Meng Xiaoshang also thought about what kind of origin did Chun Ong have to have such cultivation. She guessed that he probably had to be the ancient golden immortal Guang Chung great sage, or even figures like the green, white, red, and yellow emperors, or the ancient water god Gong Gong, or the fire god Zhu Rong. She didn't dare to think about figures like the 3 pure ones of the mystic door. With such a level of imagination, it was really not enough to guess Chunang's origin. One must have seen the birth and death of countless worlds, transcend the corner of Shushan, and look at the countless galaxies and universes, as well as the extremely vast heaven and earth. The human world of Shushan was just a planet that was a few times smaller than the sun. In the past, when Cult Master Chun swept the Milky Way with a wave of his hand, it was as vast as the Milky Way. Since Meng Xiaoshang had such considerations and was concerned about He Sheng and loved him like her own son, she revealed it in her words. When Chen Ong saw her stuttering, he knew what she was thinking. She felt that if He Sheng became Jingming's disciple, he would definitely have a positive outcome in the future. If he was taught by Chen Ong, he might achieve something. For a mother like her, she always felt that it was better to hand the child over to Jingming, who knew everything about him. However, she really didn't know if it was a blessing or a curse to hand the child over to an unfathomable person like Chen Ong. Chen Ong didn't blame her. He only said lightly, "In the future, let him choose for himself." He didn't mention Meng Xiaoshang anymore. Meng Xiaoshang was shocked. She knew that her thoughts were seen through. She was a little embarrassed and left in a hurry. Standing in the small courtyard of Shi Xia Temple, Chun Ong allowed the mountain wind to caress his sleeves. The ancient temple had only been repaired for 3 years. It was inevitable that it was dilapidated and old. Chun Ong just pointed, and a gust of pure yang true fire burned through it. The mountain peaks and cliffs where the ancient temple was located were all cracked. In the blink of an eye, the mountain roared and the earth raged. Rocks boiled and sand melted. It was just a rumbling sound that sounded like mountain thunder. It sent the foul chi in the mountain rocks into the lungs of the earth to be dissolved. The plants, insects, and snakes on the mountain were all sent into the air by the restrictive spell. Shixia Temple had become more and more ancient after being washed by the Taiyin water. When the wind and fire settled down, Chun Ong retracted his mana. He then replanted all the plants, insects, snakes, and beasts, as well as Shixia ancient temple on the ground. The foundation of the mountain had been reforged. The underground restrictive spell was faintly activated. Even the bricks and stones of Shixia ancient temple had restrictions attached to them. With just a raise of his hand, he had reforged this place into a delicate and beautiful paradise. The environment became more exquisite and cute. With a wave of Chunang's hand, the 13 springs that he collected from the outer islands and some strange plants were also placed on the mountain. Even though it still looked like a small ancient temple from the outside, it was actually different on the inside. The spiritual energy was flourishing, and the formation was hidden in the dark. It was even more perfect than the cave abodes that some rogue cultivators set up in the mountains and rivers. Even the ancient sandalwood in the backyard had a strange spiritual root transplanted into it by Chunong. Its spirituality became more and more reserved. Chunang's purpose was just to conveniently make his old residence so that there would not be any disturbances. After cultivating in seclusion for a few days, enlightened Miaoui of Qianquanqi of Amei had already sent an invitation to him before his old friends came. Seeing a pure green sword gleam landing in front of the mountain, Chun Ong stretched out his hand and pulled it in front of him. He took down enlightened Miaoi's invitation from a flying sword with extraordinary spirituality. The invitation was polite and invited him to meet him on Mount Amei 3 days later. Chunong picked up his brush pen and replied with a few sentences before putting the flying sword back. Chunong himself did not have any conflict of interest with Mount Amei. Looking at the big picture, there were many areas for both parties to cooperate with. Moreover, he had already established a relationship with enlightened Longbrow from the upper realm. That was why he let River Styx go out and cause trouble. He thought that no matter what trouble River Styx caused, it would not attract the intervention of the spiritual realm or even the heaven realm. Who knew that River Styx could cause so much trouble? The incident with the extraterrestrial demon Bliss cult was really like pinching the balls of those bald donkeys. Under such circumstances, it was no wonder that Mount Amei wanted to invite Chin Ong for a meeting to discuss the matter of eradicating the demon. However, based on River Styx's temperament, the matter of eradicating the demon would most likely turn into being erased by the demon. If River Styx was allowed to go all out, it was unknown how powerful the catastrophe of this realm would be. Fortunately, on the surface, Chin Ong was still River Styx's mortal enemy. There was still room for negotiation. Otherwise, it would be a great battle between the good and the evil. The great catastrophe of the weakening of the Tao and the growth of the demon. If things got out of hand, River Styx might dare to summon the apocalypse. By then, it would be an earth-shattering catastrophe. It would not do Chin Ong any good. Instead, it would delay the proper business of investigating and killing the Master God. Chapter 561. Other than that, Jinren Miao invited Chun Ong to Mount Amei and ordered Zhuge Jinghua to wait at the front of the mountain. The 3 deities of Donghai had already arrived from Daiji, so the laughing monk was able to leave and cultivate at Mount Amei. When he saw Zhuge Jinghua heading to the front of the mountain, he called out, "Senior brother Zhuge, where are you going?" Zhuge Jinghua stopped and said, "Sect leader Uncle Master ordered me to wait at the front of the mountain for a senior." Junior brother Xiao, sect leader Uncle Master, was concerned about this matter. He said that this senior's identity is extraordinary. You must not make a mistake. Zhuge Jinghua had always understood his junior brother's personality. Because he was spoiled, he was a little spoiled. Although he was pure in nature, he was a little reckless. Luckily, ascetic Duda was very strict and did not spoil him. But the laughing monk had an idea. It was obvious that Zhuge Jinghua had underestimated his courage. This person had reincarnated for 2,000 years and had gone through many trials. It was clear that he had committed a lot of sins. He immediately smiled and said, "Senior brother Zhuge, do you know who it is that made sect leader Uncle Master so cautious?" Zhuge Jinghua did not suspect anything and said, "It is the master of the South Sea immortal residence, Chun Ong Jinren Chun. A few Uncle Masters invited him here to discuss the matter of eliminating the demon. Previously, the River Styx demon came to the Central Plains to create chaos and was his enemy. He tricked his 3 disciples and led them into the evil path. The white-browed divine monk saved his first disciple, Li Hong. He felt that he was fated to meet Li Hong, so he wanted to ask Jinren Chun to give him a disciple. Monk Xiao said in bewilderment, "I know of this old demon, Styx River. He's a powerful old demon from overseas recently. It's said that he's a great Azura demon transformed from a 1,000-year drought demon. My master tried to get rid of the demon, but he broke through the formless sword escape and came back to warn me. But who is this Chin Ong? How can he go against him?" Zhuge Jingwa said seriously, "Junior brother, do not underestimate this senior. It is said that when the South Sea River Styx created chaos, it was this senior who defeated him." The laughing monk was even more indignant. He thought angrily, the old demon river Styx's defeat in South Sea was the joint effort of my master, Xiao Nan, Xian Ru, and the other seniors. How can a deceiver like him be greedy for credit? Even when his own disciple was bullied, he still needed Senior Whitebrow to stand up for him. It was hard to say how capable Senior Whitebrow was. Master has a profound upbringing and doesn't care about this kind of empty reputation, but I can't let him take advantage of me. Why don't I use the invisible sword escape to hide on the side and let him suffer in secret? I think he will be ashamed of himself when he realizes it and won't dare to do such a thing again. When Master asks about it, I will have something to say. He made up his mind, but did not show it on his face. He only greeted Zhuge Jingwa and turned around to return to the cave where he was cultivating. Zhuge Jingwa was relieved after seeing him return. He launched the conveyance light and headed towards Mauname to wait. He did not expect the laughing monk to appear to be going back to cultivate. In reality, he used the invisible sword escape to follow behind him. When Chen Ang's sword gleam faintly appeared, he rushed in front of Zhuge Jingwa and blocked his way. The invisible sword escape was the fastest. Before Zhuge Jingwa could see the conveyance light, he had already appeared dozens of miles away. He revealed the figure of a little monk and fell from the sky. Chenong saw someone falling from the sky, but he was not surprised. He only pointed his finger, and a sword gleam was released to catch the person. Seeing the laughing monk alone, he asked, "You are a disciple of Amei. Why did you fall from the sky?" The laughing monk smiled and said, "I was cultivating a set of Amei's secret method. It was just that I did not practice it properly and suddenly lost my footing in the sky." Chenong understood in his heart, but he looked surprised and said, "Oh, what kind of secret method is this? Why does it have such a strange requirement?" The laughing monk was overjoyed and thought to himself, "I will make a fool out of you. How can I easily inquire about other people's secret method? This person's behavior shows that he is not an honest person. I did not blame him wrongly." He was even more pleased with himself, but he spoke as if he was telling the truth. He opened his mouth and said, "We have a celestial apricot tree at the back of Mauname. If you eat two, you will be able to grow a pair of wings and wield wind and thunder. But there is one thing. This pair of wings will only grow when the heart is anxious and anxious to grow a pair of wings. This time, I wanted to fall from a high place and wait until the heart is filled with fear and anxious to grow a pair of wings. Then I will be able to grow a pair of wings. Unfortunately, no matter how anxious I am, there is no effect at all." After he finished speaking, he stole a glance at Chenong. He saw that Chun Ang's expression was indifferent. He only frowned and said, "I have heard of this celestial apricot tree, but the legend is illusory. If it really exists, can you take it out and let me have a look?" The laughing monk was relieved and thought to himself, "This unorthodox person really does not have any rules. I used the celestial apricot tree to trick him and knew that this person is greedy and will definitely ask me for it. When he asks me for it, I will deceive him of his identity and pretend to say, 'Since you are an esteemed guest of Amei, I will give this to you.' When he jumps down from the flying sword, I will hide beside him and beat him up a dozen times. Let's see if he still has the face to come to Amei." His hands did not stop and took out 2 green apricots. Chenong looked for a while and suddenly sighed and said, "This looks really nothing special. Little monk, did you mistakenly believe the joke of your fellow disciple?" The laughing monk saw that he did not believe him and quickly said, "If you don't believe me, you can look at me. When I appeared in midair for no reason, it was when I grew wings on a cliff dozens of miles away. I forced out a section of wind wings and appeared in front of you in a flash. If you still don't believe me, I can let you eat one. You will know after you try it yourself." Chenong said, "It is not that I don't believe you, but the human body is the most precious thing. What is the benefit of growing a pair of wings and turning into a beast? You Amei disciples know how to have fun. Unlike us rogue cultivators from overseas, we only know how to control flying swords and don't want to grow a pair of wings under our ribs. The laughing monk had no choice but to provoke him. Since you are a guest from overseas, I am not surprised that you do not have such knowledge. This wings of wind and thunder has endless uses. With a flap of the wings, you can travel 9,000 miles. The speed is unparalleled. Do you have this kind of escaping technique from overseas? Chunong only sighed and said, if you only have this kind of ability, why bother to grow a pair of wings? Stretch out your hand, and I will teach you a way. The laughing monk pretended to stretch out his hand, and Chunong wrote the word escape on his palm. He said, hold it in your palm and breathe into it. Shout escape upwards. You will feel it. I think it is not easy to cultivate. If you are too low, if you can't grow wings in time, your life will be in danger. If you have mana, you can control a flying sword at any time and you don't have a sense of urgency in your heart. Above the ninth heaven, it is difficult for a flying sword to come out within the magnetic true star. If you're 10,000 feet high and have enough time to deal with it, you will definitely be able to cultivate it. The laughing monk was skeptical. He grabbed his right hand and breathed into his palm. He shouted, escape upwards. Chunong secretly activated the golden ship of fate and performed the celestial star shifting technique to move him into the layer of astral winds. The laughing monk had just appeared when he was swept away by a few strong astral winds and was blown far away. He was wrapped in the wind and couldn't even open his eyes. His body was spinning like a top, and he couldn't even release a flying sword. Chapter 562. Zhuge Jing and I waited for Chunong. After bowing, he brought Chunong to where the three deities of Donghai and Reverend Miaoi were. On the way, Chunong smiled and said, the disciples of Amei are indeed extraordinary. I saw a little monk on my way here. He said he was practicing some spell called Wings of Wind and Thunder. It was really fun. As he said this, he was already at Reverend Miaoi's place and went in first. Zhuge Jing did not dare stop him. He was shocked and said, Junior brother Xiao. He hurried to find him. When Chunong arrived downstairs, a celestial light welcomed him. He stepped in and was surprised to see many people in the building. The people here were all great masters. Not to mention the three deities of Donghai. Reverend Miaoi and his wife were here. There was also the white-browed old monk, Zen Master Zhigong, Reverend Zun Sheng, Zen Master Tianming, and Reverend Dafeng and Divine Hunchback Ishio. There were many talented people here. There were many celestial beings here. It would not be embarrassing to take them to invade a realm. Reverend Miaoi was very graceful. He looked like a middle-aged Taoist in his 30s or 40s. He entered Tao in the middle of the Ming Dynasty, but he had already cultivated for 9 lifetimes. His 6th life was more than 1,000 years ago. His mana was unfathomable. When he saw Chunong enter the building, he smiled and said, Are you Chun Daoyu from overseas? Chunong smiled and said, Yes, I am. Reverend Miaoi sighed and said, This world is full of evil and stubborn. Reverend Qi Zhang's remnant, the demon River Styx, transformed from the 1,000-year drought demon. He punishes evil and runs amok overseas, but we could not control him. We had to rely on your profound mana to get rid of this demon. It is a pity that many overseas Taoists are in trouble. Now, the great trial of immortals is coming. There will be 3 sword battles between the good and the evil. The overseas Taoist is the pillar of the overseas Taoist. Together with Amei, we uphold the righteous path of punishing evil and not letting the evil grow. It is a great contribution. Chunong said indifferently, I am but one man. How can I be compared to the leader of Amei? This time, I came because I heard that my little disciple was tortured by the Nether River Demon in the Middle Earth. I also heard that he had done something perverse and actually created the Empyrean Demon Paradise, a magic that harmed the people. I also heard that Amei is the leader of the Central Plains. Our Xian Palace and Palace have a good relationship. How can we sit overseas and watch River Styx run wild? Hearing this, white-browed Venerable Sheng and the other Zen masters all nodded. White-browed Venerable Sheng couldn't help but interject. Earlier, I saw that your 3 disciples didn't receive the true teachings. I see that Li Ning has a good temperament. Can you allow him to become my disciple again? Can you let him be my disciple again?" Chenong smiled and said, "Li Ning is my first disciple. He is the most promising. Now, he is only purifying his foundation. My sect Dao techniques do not prioritize young boys. Instead, they focus more on polishing the foundation and cultivating one's mind. It is not too late to start cultivation at 70 years old. I have elixirs here to nurture his vitality and lifespan, allowing him to regain his youth. Now that the world is unstable, his dharma has yet to arrive, and his young daughter, Ying Xiong, has just been born. Thinking of his family and the importance of entering the world to temper his mind, I have not passed on the heart techniques of our sect. I have only passed on the martial arts of the human world. I'm afraid I can't agree to your request." White Mei put his palms together and chanted, "I see. I have been rude." Reverend Miao Yi said, "Li Ning's daughter, Li Yingxiong, is fated to be with a Mei. Would you be willing to give her to a Mei and inherit the second generation? In her previous life, she was fated to be with our founder, Reverend Chong Mei. Our founder left a message: 3 heroes and 2 clouds. Rise a Mei. She is one of them." Chenong thought for a while and nodded. "It is her good fortune to be able to give her to a Mei. Even though I am her founder, I do not have to stop her. Since Reverend Miao Yi is concerned, let her make the decision herself." Reverend Miao Yi saw that he agreed. Even someone as shrewd as Reverend Miao Yi could not help but relax her brows. Chenong was mysterious. Even if the founder, Reverend Chong Mei, sent a message from the heavenly realm, he had to be careful. Reverend Miao Yi did not want to get involved with this trouble. She felt relieved to be able to take this opportunity to solve this problem. They talked about private matters for a while, and then brought up the matter of exterminating the demons again. Reverend Miao Yi said, when old demon River Styx was first sealed in the South Sea, he was not eye-catching. After he escaped from Chun Daoyou's hands, he split his soul to form the Blood Sea primordial spirit, and his body transformed into the supreme demon body of Great Azura. Then, he became the #1 demon cultivator in this realm. Later, he killed Xinyuan the Great, killed the venerable poison dragon, and set up the Blood River Formation and the formless demonic formation in a great battle overseas. He killed countless people. His comrades overseas were all gone. Both the righteous and the demonic sects lost countless people. Senior apprentice brother ascetic Duda and divine nun Xian Ru tried to stop him, but they were also defeated. My senior apprentice brothers, the divine monk, and I made many deductions. Our background seems clear, but it is actually covered up. It is difficult to tell the truth from the lies. Chun Daoyu suspects that when Hanba transformed into a heavenly demon, the heavenly demon sent a devil's tribulation. After he suffered the tribulation, he merged with the heavenly demon's soul and became a peerless demon. After he was expelled overseas by Chun Daoyu, he rushed to the Middle Earth and created countless evil demons. The aftermath of the great calamity in Liaodong has far-reaching effects. Now, the death of hundreds of thousands of people is only the beginning of the calamity. There is an even more powerful backup plan. Now, the old demon has entered the hidden land near the South Sea and wants to unify the Sea of Constellations. The old demons of West Kunlun have established the sect of Heavenly Demon Extreme Bliss in the South Sea. They have committed countless sins. As a result, the heavenly Tao is weakening and the demons are growing. The living beings are in danger, and the righteous path is in danger. At this time of crisis, please work together and kill this demon. Zen Master Bai Mei added, for example, among all the divine powers in the realm of desire, heavenly demon Bo Sun is the first. Looking at his supernatural power, we can see that he has turned into the demon king of freedom. His supernatural power controls the heavenly demon and the blood demon. He has turned into the demon king of freedom and the demon king of freedom. He is the supreme demon king of freedom. His supernatural power is boundless, and his supernatural power is also boundless. He has bewitched all living beings in the earth realm and is the first devil's tribulation. is really terrifying. He once said that the sage has no fixed heart and treats the hearts of the common people as his heart. Bo Sun also has no fixed heart and treats the hearts of the common people as his heart. Now, he has opened the realm of heavenly demon extreme bliss, obeying the hearts of the common people in the realm of desire. He has to bear the endless consequences of his sins and turn the world into peace. There is no good or evil, no karmic retribution, and no separation. He said, "All forms belong to me. The evil in this is immeasurable." Master Defong frowned and said, "This person's whereabouts are secretive. Previously, we did not have full confidence. Moreover, the mysteries of heaven are obscure, so we did not take action to eliminate the demon. Now that he has entered the great snow mountain, there is no news of him. We do not know what he has turned into to bewitch the people. Are we just going to wait here?" Chenong listened for a long time before he explained. River Styx does not take action. Once he takes action, he must have full confidence. This person was born in response to the tribulation and rose with it. This time, we are setting up a tribulation for him. If we win, then it is fine. If he is lucky enough to escape, his supernatural power will increase immeasurably. You must know that the cultivation of the heavenly demon is to set up tribulations with all living beings. The heavier the tribulations, the faster the improvement of the heavenly demon's essence. Chapter 563. Chenang's words were very pertinent. The experts present wanted to nod in agreement, but perfected Taoist Dafeng, Godhead Ishio, interrupted Chenong and sneered. From what fellow Taoists said, you seem to have some understanding of this old Demon Styx River. When fellow Taoists met the East siblings in the South China Sea, you weren't so clear about it. When Yi Cheng was here, he did not see you like this. Ishio's anger came out of nowhere and shocked everyone. Dao Master Miao, he tried to stop him, but was stopped by Ishio. "Hunchback, I'm a straightforward person. I can't hide anything in my heart. Today, when I saw this Chun Daoyu, I can't pretend to be angry. Fellow Taoist, Yi Zhou is a gentleman. Even if he has something to say, he can't say it. Dao Master Miao, do you know why Dao Master Yi, who is grieving over the loss of his son, refused to come?" Ishio stood up, looked at Chenong, and said sternly, "Although fellow Taoist Chun has the ambition to eliminate demons, he didn't do anything when the river Styx was bathed in blood. He even took the lives of the East siblings. Hunchback Yi, don't have any good words for someone like him to participate in our demon-slaying gathering. I just want to point at him and ask, why did he do such a thing? Such an irresponsible person. I am ashamed to sit with him." Dao Master Dafeng, white-browed divine monk, interrupted him. "Dao Master Dafeng, life and death are determined by fate. Chun Daoyu didn't mean to being stared at by everyone." Chenong was still calm. He smiled and said, "Dao Master Dafeng is right. I did watch Yi Cheng suffer. But those who want to die have their own way of doing it. I am not fellow Taoist Yi Zhou. Why should I discipline his children? Life and death have their own paths, the cycle of tribulations. Cultivators have their own destinies. Yi Cheng's life is just like that. He's just an unorthodox junior who has lost his mind. Even if he died, there's nothing to say. I, Chen Mao, am not talented. I cultivate the Tao in search of the truth. What I seek is the great Tao, and what I cultivate is longevity. I am not some Tao protector of the younger generation, nor am I a bodhisattva who saves people from suffering. My entire life of cultivation is not to save people. Even if a member of the Yi clan dies, what does it have to do with me? It's just that my strength wasn't enough, and I sought the Tao halfway and perished. Dao Fang Jinren and the Yi family are old friends, and he admires these two juniors, so he always protects them. This kind of love for the house and its crow is understandable. But what does this have to do with me? If you are in the mood, why don't you save the great Ming dynasty and save the world? Chenong suddenly looked at the divine monks present and asked in a clear voice, "Venerable holy monks, you are all people of great mercy and compassion. Now, the people of the world are being cooked and steamed. White bones are exposed to the wilderness in all four directions. The people of the Central Plains have no way to make a living. Now, The entire imperial court is filled with man-eating beasts, and the barren lands are even more inhumane. In the south, the E-people are enslaving humans, leading beasts to eat humans. In the west, the Tibetan border of Sichuan uses human blood as a sacrifice. In the north, thousands of miles of refugees. In the east, the Jinnu massacred cities. The people of the Central Plains are haunted by nameless ghosts day and night. The old demon River Styx is heartless. He created the extraterrestrial demon paradise, teaching people to die. How did it become a disaster for the world? Is it because the people are giving up their lives and seeking death? Chenong glanced at the faces of Bai Mei, Zun Sheng, and the others. He asked, how can the people face death with equanimity? How can the people of the world enjoy the extraterrestrial demon paradise? All of you divine monks? Can Buddhism save the great Ming dynasty? Can it save the people? Now that the extraterrestrial demon paradise sect is going against the grain, the people see the Buddhist kingdom as hell and yearn for the devil kingdom to be reborn. All of you are people who enter the world to save people. Why do you only ask people to pray to Buddha and suffer? You and I both know that the reason why the extraterrestrial demon paradise sect is so rampant is not because the river Styx is bewitching people, but because the people are suffering and have nowhere to escape. Buddhism can't save people, so don't blame people for turning to the devil. It's because of all of you great monks. You are unable to save the world. You don't dare to debate with the devil. So you can only eliminate the devil to protect the Tao and get rid of the root of the river Styx. After all, if the world is filled with Buddhist kingdom, peace and happiness, none of you can do it. Am I right? All of you don't dare to get involved with the human world. You don't dare to enter the world to save the world. You're just blindfolding your eyes and pretending not to see. Ishio sneered. Cultivators have their own dharma and logos. They are bound by the rules of heaven and entangled by karma. The human world has its own humanity. How can we outsiders be entangled with it? The crime of the river Styx is to offend humanity with the Tao of the devil. If every cultivator can attack the mortals, what will the world become? Chen Ong clapped his hands and laughed. Well said. That's the logic. If the mortals don't want to improve themselves, how can cultivators save the great Ming dynasty? Cultivators aren't rearing dogs, so how can they raise the great Ming dynasty? Just let the great Ming dynasty reap what it has sown. This Yi Chung is making the same logic. He's not my dog. Why should I save him? Just because you, perfected Master Daofeng, are tyrannical. If I don't save him, are you going to make things difficult for me? Or is it because the Yi family is powerful, and if I don't save him, will it go against the heavens and humanity? You perfected Master Daofeng are close to the Yi family, and you love these juniors. But what does that have to do with me? I have my own rules when I do things. The law is measured by the ruler, and it depends on the heart. Who are you to judge? Perfected Master Daofeng, if you want to be strong, then come and try. I will only be stronger than you. Shunta Ishio jumped up, his eyebrows raised, and he sneered at Chenong. This is a Mei's noble place. I won't argue with you here. If you really have such big words, then come and try it with me above the 9 heavens. Chenong just waved his hand, gesturing for him to go up. Please. Perfected Meow One had no choice but to interrupt. He thought, although perfected Master Daofeng is a little impatient, he has good intentions. It's just that he's too straightforward. He can't tolerate sand in his eyes. He's quite protective. Although Chun Daoyu is a little cold, what he said is also the logic of cultivators. No matter what, it's not good to let the two of them become enemies. As the host of a Mei, Perfected Meow One invited, fellow cultivators, please don't hurt the harmony. Perfected Master Daofeng abhors evil. He's a little impatient, and Chun Daoyu didn't do anything wrong. In this kind of matter, it's not up to you to help. It's all up to you. If the two of you hurt the harmony because of this, it's also against the original intention of this meeting. Reverend Zun Sheng also smiled bitterly. This meeting is to get rid of the devil, but now the two of us become enemies. Isn't it a joke? Why don't the two of us fight with words, showing each other's abilities, so that we won't get into a real fight and become enemies? Chenong didn't mind. Shun Ta Ishio thought for a moment, then said, "Originally, Hunchback wouldn't want to stop with this person, but this time I was invited by Perfected Meow One, and I'm really guilty of disturbing this meeting. I don't dare to go against the divine monks. Let's have a fight with this person." Perfected Meow One said, "This fight is not for reason, but to determine the winner and the loser, to eliminate this kind of conflict. If we get into a fight, it will go against the original intention. So we need the eminent monks to come up with a rule to make the fight look fair, so that the loser can accept the result with peace of mind." Chapter 564. It was common for cultivators to fight with magical powers. In the past, many disputes between Mount Wutai and Mount Amei were settled in a sword fight between the master of Hun Yuan and Immortal Meowie. Although Mount Amei did not do a clean job in this matter, they still wanted to keep the peace in this fight between Ishio and Chenong. The few old monks discussed it over and over again, but in the end, they just sat in meditation and competed with each other. Not to mention Chenong, even the hot-tempered Shintoa Ishio would not do this. Ishio listened for a long time, and when he heard the plan of the few divine monks, he said unwillingly, "Why do we have to do this? If you want to say, cultivators have different paths. Let's have a sword fight to determine who is better. Hunchback, started cultivation 200 to 300 years earlier than him. I heard that this Chun Daoyu once had a period of time, and he was famous all over the world. He dared to challenge the Amei Yin and Yang Dust Formation. He once defeated the old Devil River Styx Blood River Formation and chased him out of the sea. How arrogant! I, Hunchback, am, but I still want to see it. In this fight, why don't we break the formation and win? Please, Chin Daoyu, set up a formation for me. If I, Hunchback, can walk out of it, I win. If I can't, you could do whatever you want of me." As soon as he said that, Reverend Miao, Yi, and the three deities of Amei changed their expressions. Ascetic Duda had seen the scene of Chun Ang's Yellow River of Nine Bends Formation in the South Sea. It was a magnificent scene that could turn the sky and earth upside down. No matter how much ascetic Duda overestimated Shintoa Ishio's attainment and power, he did not dare to say that he could escape from that kind of formation. Although he had a good impression of Chenong, there was still a difference between them. Reverend Dafong and Mount Amei had been friends for many years, so he did not want to see him die. He quickly said, "Reverend Dafong, you mustn't. Master Ku Xing, please don't stop me." Reverend Dafong Ishio interrupted. "Hunchback, I am not an arrogant person. If I can't even break Chun Daoyu's formation, what I did before was just asking to be humiliated. The army can take the commander, but an ordinary man cannot." The Hunchback couldn't stand his behavior, so he naturally wanted to compete with him. How can you convince people with empty words? Hearing Ishio's assertion, Chenong could tell that he was from the unorthodox sect. The more one was from the unorthodox sect, the more he understood the principle of Tao is under the sword. The people from the unorthodox sect did not have a layer of dignity like the orthodox sect of Xianmen. Each of them had a strange temperament and had a style of respecting the strong. Ishio himself was not a reasonable person. In the original story, after the calamity of the Violet Cloud Palace, the Yi brothers fought their way to the Copper Coconut Island and were captured by Tianqi Exalted. Tianqi Exalted tried to be reasonable and explain the cause and effect of what had happened. First, he said that his disciples had broken the rules of the Violet Cloud Palace and were punished with 100 lashes. Then he said that the two brothers were relentless and chased them for 100 miles to the Copper Coconut Island and destroyed more than 70 celestial trees. They didn't distinguish right from wrong, injured people, destroyed the island, and tried to kill his disciples. He wanted to whip the Yi brothers dozens of times. Tianqi was the one who was in the right. The Yi clan's disciples were too strong and didn't know what was good for them. Tianqi's punishment was fair and just. However, Ishio had burned the magnetic mountain with a Dao spell and forced the Yi clan's disciples out of the mountain. He even asked esteemed Tianqi to find him next year to solve the cause and effect. In the end, he caused the Copper Coconut Island's eternal fire disaster, which was a big mess. The people of this generation mostly acted according to their own likes and dislikes. They were not very reasonable They only wanted to rely on their mana to be able to think clearly and live freely. Although Reverend Meow 1 and the others had their own opinions about the Yi siblings, they did not look down on Chenong. Because of this, they still treated him in a righteous manner. Only people with Ishio's temper would want to have a fight to see who was better. Because Chenong knew Ishio's temper, he was not upset. Everyone had their own interests, and Ishio did not put Chenang's interests above Reverend Zhou's. It would be strange if he did not consider the Yi clan's interests. Chenong was probably like Ishio. He only cared about himself and pursued freedom. He did not put the world's righteousness above his own interests. Therefore, their plan was more in line with Reverend Meow 1 and the other monk's plan. Chenong smiled and said, "Although Reverend Dafong looks down on me, you are right." Chenong smiled and stretched out his 5 fingers. He pressed his palm in the air and said, "Reverend Dafong, you don't need to break my yellow river of 9-tuned array. The yellow river of 9-tuned array cuts the 5 chi and destroys the 3 flowers. Even Golden Immortal Dara would be affected by it for a while. I don't have a deep grudge against Reverend Dafong, and I'm not here to kill demons. I can only use 1 palm. If I use 1 more hand, I'll be bullying you." When he said that, the other monks nodded secretly, thinking that he had a sense of propriety. But when he said the last sentence, Shun Tua Ishio flew into a rage. He slammed the table and stood up, shouting, "Reverend Shun, you've gone too far." Even Reverend Meow 1 and ascetic Duda thought that Chun Ang's words were too rude and arrogant. Chun Ong waved his sleeves and said, "Mount Ame is a famous mountain in the world. It's not convenient to fight here. I'll press my palm in a remote place in the EC. If Reverend Dafong can escape from this place, then I lose." Then, without waiting for Ishio to shout, he flipped his right hand and a golden light pierced through the sky. Chenong gently lifted his right hand and held up the sky. Suddenly, the stars flickered and the sun appeared in the sky. The sky was dark and gloomy. The entire Middle-earth could see a small gap in the sun. Heavenly Dog eats the sun. Chen-ong stepped on the golden ship of good fortune. The heavenly star prohibition on the golden ship was activated to the maximum by Chun-ang's mana. It moved a constellation and covered the great sun in the sky of Middle-earth. Such a shocking supernatural power was really a great mana, great wisdom, and supreme supernatural power. It made the old monks sitting on Mount Ame feel their hair stand on end, and panic appeared on their faces. Although the near-Earth constellation of Mount Shu was not as huge as the stars and planets in the galaxy, it was not comparable to a mountain peak or a blessed land. The entire Middle-earth, or even the Great Eastern Wasteland, was only this size. It could cover the sky and the earth. The meaning behind it was horrifying. At this moment, countless cultivators in the entire Middle-earth were shocked. Some were frightened. Some were puzzled as they looked at this shocking phenomenon. Wind, rain, clouds, and mist. The sun rises and the moon sets. It's just the breath of the candle dragon, moving the stars and changing the constellations. It's all in the next palm. As the golden ship of good fortune emitted a golden brilliance, it seemed to be under an unparalleled pressure. It suddenly dimmed and seemed to be on the verge of collapse. The stars in the sky suddenly shone brightly and changed their position. No, it should be said that the position of Mount Ame under their feet changed. Chun-ong seemed to have lifted Mount Ame and moved it to a barren place in the East Sea with unparalleled mana. Reverend Meowie watched as the sea turned into mulberry fields in front of Mount Ame. The plain farmland in the basin of Sichuan suddenly turned into the vast East Sea. Reverend Meowie knew that Chun-ong moved Mount Ame to the East Sea temporarily with the mana of moving the stars. He took a breath of cold air. Fortunately, he had seen the back of the mountain and knew that Ningtsue Cliff did not move along with the mountains and seas. Otherwise, he would suspect that the Mount Ame Immortal's mansion left by the ancestral master, Reverend Longbrow, will be taken away by Chun-ong with 1 palm, and the prohibition on the mountain would be useless. But even so, it was still a shocking matter. Throughout the Central Plains and the Great Desolate, there was actually not a single person who had Chun-ang's magical power and divine ability. Even Reverend Dafeng Ishio did not dare to say that Chun Ong humiliated him. With such power, he had the qualification to say that if Ishio could escape from his palm, he would win. Without this condition, Reverend Dafeng knew that he would lose without a doubt. Reverend Dafeng, today I will press my palm on this EC. If you can escape from this palm, I will lose. If you can't, then you will be suppressed in this palm for 81 years. Chunong smiled faintly. His right palm turned slightly from top to bottom. The stars that covered the sun above his head shook with a loud rumble. The sky above Mount Amei seemed to have broken a big hole in the void. The true fire of the sun poured out and burned fiercely. It fell from the sky, and the huge stars in the sky gradually expanded. The sky was murderous. The Big Dipper moved. The stars changed, the stars fell. Chapter 565. Even though there were many connoisseurs in this world, and they could reduce some of the power, it was enough to turn the Middle Earth into a vast ocean and feed the people of the continent to the fishes and prawns. This was a power that could destroy the world. Although it was not as powerful as Tiancan and Deek's sphere of mixed elements, they used the chi of mixed elements left over from thousands of years ago to condense into a planet. Once it cracked, the atmosphere within a radius of 5,000 miles was immediately filled with primordial chi. Earthquakes and landslides occurred, floods surged, and fire burned the sky. Within this zone of vibration, all living things were destroyed, and it even spread. Everywhere it went, the chi was as heavy as a mountain. Living things that came into contact with it immediately stopped breathing and died. Such power, but could also set off monstrous waves that affected the four seas and drowned the Middle Earth. The people of China were all fed to the fishes and prawns, and 8 or 9 out of 10 living things in the four seas died. This created endless karma and caused a disaster that was rarely seen since the beginning of the world. Tiancan and Deek gathered the chi of mixed elements that had almost accumulated into a planet to condense into a magical weapon. Although it was terrifying, the way Chun Ong shook the star and smashed the star that had already formed into a planet onto the EC was not inferior at all. The old monks and connoisseurs on Mount Amei panicked. Zen Master Bai Mei raised the Buddha's light and turned thousands of miles of the East Sea into a Buddhist land. Several divine monks held up the Buddha's light together and turned the barren sea area into a land of Buddha, preparing to wear down the terrifying power of the falling stars. It was hard to say how effective this preparation of using human strength to resist the heavenly power would be. In the face of such a terrifying power, even if the divine monks were the first-class old monsters in this realm, they did not have much confidence to say how much of a disaster they could avert. Reverend Miao, one shouted, "Chun Daoyu, why are you doing this? Fellow Taoist, please stop this spell so that the living things of this world won't be affected." Ascetic Duda gathered the invisible sword ray and was ready to attack at any time. Zhuan Zenzi and the 2 elders of Mount Song also raised their mana, ready to attack at any time. Unexpectedly, Chenong only smiled and said, "Fellow Taoists, don't panic. Watch my magic power first." They watched as the stars in the sky grew bigger and bigger. They had already occupied almost half of the sky. The people of Mount Amei were still holding back and did not make a move. Suddenly, the immortals felt that the metal objects on their bodies were slightly moving. The metal and refined iron on the ground gradually floated up. The crushed stones from the refined iron mine in the body of Mount Amei also broke off and floated up slowly. Not long after, some of the juniors of Mount Amei felt that their flying swords were slightly out of control, as if they were about to fly out of their bodies. The golden ship of creation behind Chun Ong shot out a wisp of yin-yang 2 modes primordial magnetism divine light, illuminating the entire Mount Amei. Only then did this sense was cut off. However, what they saw before their eyes were countless veins of gold, stone, iron, and copper on the EC in front of them, breaking through the surface of the water. Some of the rare metals even turned into light and shot up into the sky. At this time, ascetic Duda suddenly understood and said, "The star that is about to fall is a magnetic star." His words immediately surprised everyone. Immortal Meowie counted with her fingers and said, 800 miles south of here is the Copper Coconut Island's North Pole magnetic earth vein. The Copper Coconut Island's magnetic earth vein is a branch of the North Pole magnetic earth vein, which belongs to the extreme En element. And the side of this star below is the extreme En element. Chenong said. Zen Master Bai Mei withdrew his great amplification Buddhist light and said, this star is repelled by the North Pole magnetic force, so it will fall slowly. It won't be a disaster. Chen Dao's calculation is really... Chenong acted as if he didn't hear Zen Master Bai Mei's reproach. He saw a cyan sword light flying over from the horizon. He smiled and waved his sleeve to take the divine wood sword light. He took a handwritten letter from the divine wood sword, hurriedly glanced at it, and said, I have a good relationship with Tianqi, the Copper Coconut Island's venerable master. Under the Copper Coconut Island's earth meridian is a place where the ancient earth lung poison fire accumulates. A few years ago, I secretly released the poison fire here, but I still couldn't get rid of it. After the establishment of the South Sea Mansion, I discussed with the venerable master to draw down a magnetic star and use it to suppress the earth meridian here. Turn the stars into continents and use the power of the stars to release the poisonous fire. Tianqi, my friend, will control the great natural magnetic formation on the island and control the power of the stars. I will suppress the poisonous fire in the earth lung and protect all living creatures on this island. When the star turns into a continent and fills the weak void of the earth's crust, the star will shake the earth and remove the poisonous fire. Then, it will turn into a continent and give birth to creatures. We can call it the star continent. It will nourish countless creatures like the central continent and create the world. The star continent is the essence of the magnetic star. I know that my friend from Amay have worked hard to get rid of the minor tribulation of one origin. So, I asked my friends from Amay to use long-browed Taoist trick to refine this continent and break the magnetic essence. Then, we can refine the magnetic vein into Tianqi Shangren's magnetic mountain and make it a supreme treasure. At the same time, we can turn this magnetic star into a foundation and move the mountains and rivers of the central continent here. We can create a continent and nourish countless creatures. We can even create a continent and obtain external power that is several times more powerful than the previous minor tribulation of one origin. My friend, although what you are doing is for the benefit of all living beings and to get rid of the great tribulation of one origin, I shouldn't question you. But my friend, you are really rude and unreasonable. You didn't discuss this with Amay before you made the decision. Don't you think you are being too domineering? Ascetic Duda frowned and shouted. Chenong just smiled and said, my friend, you are too serious. Before I came to the central continent, Tianqi Shangren, and I made a wish to the heaven realm and got long-browed Taoist permission. As for why he didn't tell Amay, this was Tianqi Shangren's idea. He said, it was Amay who made the first move. Since my friend from Amay have made a lot of preparations and kept it from him, the host, then don't blame him for not telling you. Ascetic Duda pulled a long face, but he couldn't say anything. If they had followed their plan, it would have been reasonable, but their plan had been overturned. Chunong and Tianqi had come up with a new plan to get rid of the minor tribulation of one origin, and they had a 90% chance of success. Besides, their previous plans were unreasonable. Since Amay had made the first move, they couldn't blame Tianqi for making the second move. Now, Tianqi was going to be able to ascend to the heaven realm because of his external power, and he didn't need to care about Amay anymore. Even though Chun Ong and Tianqi had made the minor Yuan calamity bigger, the Amay sect would get a bigger share of it. However, Miao, Yi, and the three celestial beings of the East Sea weren't happy about it. The long-browed Jinren from the heavens world didn't care about the Amay sect's reputation. Chenong seemed to have made things difficult for Amay, but in fact, he had already seen through Amay's plan. Amay wasn't better than immortal Miao, Yi, Penance, or any of the first or second generation disciples, but long-browed Taoist from the heaven realm. To put it bluntly, Chunong would rather fight with long-browed Taoists than argue with a Mei in the human world. As long as Chunong and long-browed Taoists' interests were interlinked, Chunong didn't care about immortal Miao, ascetic Duda, or the disciples of a Mei in the human world. Even if they caused trouble, they couldn't interfere with Chunang's interests. That was why he gave Mei a big share of the cake of the star continent, which made immortal Miao, and the others lose face. The magnificent star turned into a continent, slowly approaching the sea area that Chunong had planned. All the aquatic creatures in that area had been driven away. Hundreds of miles away, Tianqi esteemed was controlling the natural magnetic Great Formation. He slowly controlled the magnetic mountain to release a magnetic light to support the gigantic continent. Chunang's Dharma power turned into a giant hand, which was 3,000 miles long, to support the continent. Even though the Earth meridians under the Copper Coconut Island were groaning as if they couldn't bear the weight, Master Tianqi was still trying his best to activate the magnetic mountain. He had almost destroyed this great treasure that he had spent a lot of effort to create, but he was still barely able to support the star continent. Chunong looked calm and composed, and his gigantic hand was steadily supporting the star continent. He didn't look worried at all, which shocked those powerful cultivators. They knew that half of the weight of the future star continent was on Chunang's Dharma power hand. Tianqi esteemed was trying his best, but Chunong didn't seem to care at all. Chunong patted the back of his head, and the golden ship of good formation turned into a golden light and flew into the Dharma power hand. The Milky Way's Dharma power suddenly split into two and turned into endless yin and yang magnetic divine light, which merged with the continent. Immortal Miao, and the others knew that Chunong had already adjusted the Earth meridians, primordial qi, geomagnetic force, and so on. Under such great pressure, Chunong still had the energy to make such arrangements. In the eyes of a Mei people, Chunang's Dharma power was unfathomable. With the power of the golden ship of fate, Chunong temporarily sacrificially refined the entire star continent. A mountain-like star continent slowly opened its 5 fingers and turned into a huge palm that covered the sky. It spread out in front of the people of a Mei sect. Chunong smiled and said, "Immortal Dafeng, please go ahead." Zen Master Bai Mei couldn't help saying. Chun Dao ascetic Dida also sighed and said, "Chin Daoyu, why do you have to do this?" A Mei people couldn't bear to watch. Everyone knew that Immortal Dafeng wouldn't be able to escape. No one thought that Xiao would be able to escape from the star continent. If he went back, he would be suppressed for 81 years. Zen Master Zun Sheng begged, "Fellow Taoist Chun, what happened earlier was just a personal dispute. I'm an old friend of Daofeng Zhenren. I'm willing to make 3 promises to help Taoist Chun once. From now on, I'm willing to help fellow Taoist Chun 3 times." Xiao interrupted. "Master Zun Sheng, stop." He didn't sound angry at all. Instead, he smiled and said, "I don't have any regrets to fight with Qin Daoyu. It's hard to say who will win or lose. Hunchback, I really want to fight. But after 81 years, I'll come out." Xiao still wants to discuss Dao with Chun Daoyu. Then, he didn't look back and went straight into the star continent. Chunong flipped his palm, and the 3,000 miles palm of the star continent opened up. The Taiyang magnetic field on the back of his palm turned into the Taiyang magnetic field on the palm. The yin and yang magnetic fields attracted each other. Instantly, the entire star continent and the underground Taiyang magnetic field merged into one. The entire palm of the star continent pressed down. The palm of the continent that Xiao was in was pressed down into the lungs of the earth and merged with the crust. Instantly, the poisonous fire in the lungs of the earth erupted, and thousands of miles of the continent turned into boiling lava. The foundation of the star continent and the crust merged into one, turning into a giant palm that slammed into the sea between the East Sea and the South Sea. The 5 fingers were distinct, and the giant continent spanned more than 5,000 miles. It stood on the surface of the sea and went deep into the lungs of the earth. The palm that Xiao was in went 900,000 feet into the crust, deep into the lungs of the earth. He was suppressed by the entire star continent. Chapter 566. Ishio was suppressed by Chunong under the star continent. The mountain, which was originally 190,000 feet high, fell down and nailed into the ground. The earth-lung poisonous fire that had been accumulated for 1,000 years was suppressed in the abyss. The copper coconut island was originally weak, but now it was filled by the star continent, which was 5,000 miles long and 3,000 miles wide. It became the thickest part of the Earth's crust. The magnetic star that Chunong had shaken down was extremely hard. The earth veins on the continent and the magnetic pure evil chi were condensed by Tian Chi esteemed in Chunong. In this way, not to mention Ishio, even the Amei sect would not be able to help him. Only after 81 years, when the aftermath of the magnetic star continent was released, it caused an earthquake that shook the entire continent. It was the power accumulated in the Earth's crust that poured out. It was a disaster of fortune for the star continent. Only then would Ishio have a chance to escape. At that moment, the star continent had already been embedded in the Earth's crust, breaking the earth-lung poisonous fire. The Tai Chi fire surged up, and the nearby sea suddenly shook. There was a huge earthquake, and the mountains and valleys at the bottom of the sea all collapsed. In the blink of an eye, at the edge of the star continent, the mountains were roaring, stones were boiling, sand was melting, and wind, earth, water, and fire were erupting at the same time. The boiling lava burned the nearby sea red. In the star continent, a golden light dashed left and right. Wherever it went, the earth and rocks cracked. The core of a huge star outside the star continent was broken. It was Chun Ang's golden ship of fortune that had drilled into the core of the star continent, unblocked it, and created all the earth veins of the continent. It connected with the nearby water veins and the earth veins, and the primordial chi and earth chi were unblocked. After this, the star continent could be considered to have started to merge with the earth's crust. When the people from the Amei sect and the Buddhist sect saw this scene, they could not help but have complicated expressions. However, Chunong did not seem to feel anything. He only looked at the golden light moving around in the earth veins and smiled. This star came from beyond the heavens and has yet to be developed. It is high above the 9 heavens, and there are some heavenly treasures that are rarely seen in the land domain. Now, if we want to create this continent, we need to disperse the primordial magnetic essence chi and clear the stagnant earth veins. Most of the places where the veins of the earth converge are hard, and they contain various precious treasures from beyond the heavens. There's no karma between the heaven Tao and the karma of the heaven Tao. Fellow Taoists, all of you come from vast sects, and you have an endless number of excellent disciples. Why don't you make a move and collect some so that you can refine treasures and open furnaces in the future? As soon as he finished speaking, he commanded the golden ship of fortune to emit the primordial magnetic divine light and collect the various treasures in the earth veins. Among them, the most precious treasures from beyond the 9 heavens were the Milky Way star sand. For example, there were countless Tai star sand that was formed by the residual heat of the meteors flying in the sky and the primordial unity star sand that had yet to disperse. Chunong did not forget that the golden ship of fortune was only a small success. It still needed countless heavenly treasures to fill the gap before it could be completed. At the moment, the foundation of the star continent was already stable. Although the aftershocks continued, the underground lava bubbled up from time to time. The gold chi accumulated on the surface of the earth veins, and there were many rocky mountains and mineral veins. It was difficult for plants to grow, and the magnetic chi leaked out. From time to time, mountains floated in the air, and areas with abnormal gravity appeared. It was still a long way to go before it could become a habitable continent that could nourish living creatures. However, he had to make it clear in advance that he had to eliminate the demons hiding in the stars, guide the gold chi, move the mountains and rivers of the central earth, move the mud from the bottom of the sea to the continent, open roads, guide the earth chi, and transplant plants. He had already promised Mount Amei to do all the hard work and all the external skills. Chunong had already eaten the greatest benefits from the stars, and the rest of the natural treasures brought out by the earth chi, as well as the rare spiritual medicines, should also be shared with others. It was not a good habit to eat alone. As for the transportation of the magnetic chi, the removal of the magnetic chi from the star continent, and the elimination of the magnetic chi, it was left to Tian Chi and his disciples. Tian Chi wanted to use this opportunity to refine the magnetic mountain, to refine a supreme treasure for his sect, and, at the same time, to accumulate external skills for his disciples. The plan he and Chunong had already helped him to ascend. However, this old man was very ambitious. He wanted to use this hard work to train his disciples so that he could ascend together with his outstanding disciples and become their patriarchs in the spiritual immortal realm. Reverend Miao one looked at the boundless horizon in front of Mount Amei, the towering Xing Chun province that looked like an ancient giant beast. She recalled Chun Eng's method of moving the stars and splitting the heavens and earth. She could not help but be slightly moved. He released his primordial spirit and could see that 6,000 miles southeast of the Central Plains, the Xing Chun province stretched for 3,000 miles, like a giant hand spread out on the South China Sea. Among them, the four fingers stretched for thousands of miles, towering like dragons. For mountain ranges sat in the northwest, and a large plain in the center of the palm was located in the southeast. To the east, at the position of the thumb, there was a large island slightly smaller than the constellation continent, about 1/10 the size of the constellation continent. This island was near the Copper Coconut Island. Reverend Miao saw Tian Chi and his disciples land on the Copper Coconut Island. It looked like they were going to move the Copper Coconut Island to this big island. Reverend Miao smiled wryly. Fortunately, he knew that what he had done wasn't so good, so he just pretended that he didn't see it. Before Reverend Miao could check the star continent, he saw another beam of light fly up from the magnetic mountain of the Copper Coconut Island and fly towards them. That beam of light was none other than Tian Chi. Before Reverend Miao landed, he laughed and said, "Chun Dao, you moved the entire Mount Amei to this place. Does he want me to have a neighbor? The star continent is also very big. In the future, the population will grow, and it will be able to raise tens of millions of people. If you, my friend from the Amei sect, are willing to be my neighbor, I will also welcome you." Huh! Reverend Miao knew that Reverend Miao was mocking him, but he wasn't the kind of person who wouldn't give up easily. Reverend Miao shook his head and sighed. Mount Amei is a famous place in the center of Shu. I don't dare to make Shu lose its fame because of my sect. My friend Tian Chi, you must be joking. Seeing Chenong, Reverend Tian Chi asked, "When I was on the magnetic mountain, I saw a beam of light falling towards the star continent, but it was overturned by the star continent. I thought that beam of light was very familiar. Do you know Qindaoyu?" Tian Chi esteemed didn't know the reason, so he asked Xiao again. He and Xiao had been enemies for a long time, and in the end, both of them had been injured. When he saw Xiao being suppressed by the star continent, he felt relieved and relaxed. So he asked Xiao about it. Xiao's escape light had disappeared, so he asked Tian Chi esteemed about it. Hearing his words, except for Chenong, everyone else's expressions changed, but Reverend Tian Chi noticed it. Chenong replied calmly, "It's just a small misunderstanding between me and Reverend Dafong. I made a bet with him, and Reverend Dafong was willing to live in seclusion for decades." Chapter 567. The river Styx spent 3 days in the Great Snow Mountain before walking out of the vast wilderness. At most, it would pull the snow mountain toward southern Tibet. On the way, one could see the stone path that was trodden by the bearers and the caravans all year round. This road had been the main road into Tibet since ancient times. Because most of the caravans were pulling tea leaves from the center of Sichuan to Tibet, it was called the Tea Horse Ancient Road. Along the way, River Styx's hair and brows were covered with a thin layer of ice. He looked white and old. In the cold highland, he wore a Taoist robe. Occasionally, he met a horse caravan, but they dared to avoid him as they knew he was not an ordinary person. When they arrived at Matawa, there were more people. Matawa was an important town on the ancient tea and horse road, so it was not uncommon to see Han merchants coming and going. Therefore, there was not a single Taoist priest in Mingi. Tibetan nobles also often came here to purchase tea and silk goods from Sichuan. In the ancient town, caravans came and went, Han guards and waiters leading short horses, and Tibetan lamas rubbed shoulders with each other. It was a different atmosphere from other places. There were many merchants traveling around here, and they were all very discerning. Mingi, a Taoist priest, was here alone. Their stomachs were also a little grumpy, so they did not dare to provoke him. Especially in this cold climate, Mingi was only wearing a thin Taoist robe, which made the discerning people even more afraid and restrained their subordinates from acting rashly. The more this was the case, the more confident those who dared to provoke him would be. There was a Tibetan noblewoman next to him. When she saw River Styx's unusual behavior, her eyes brightened. She was wearing ordinary Tibetan clothing. Although it could not hide her nobility, she was protected by a few big men with scimitars. No one dared to provoke her. The group did not look like nobles on a trip. Instead, they looked like a group of refugees. A big man next to the noblewoman saw this and whispered into the girl's ear, "Young master, we are here to ask head Lama Sambuza to get rid of that demon. Master's life is in danger. Huakang's house name and the glory of his ancestors are all tied to you. Although this Han has some tricks up his sleeves, we don't know much about him. We can't afford to offend him." The young girl angrily said, "Great Lama Sambuza wants me to marry his good-for-nothing nephew. I, Appa, only have one daughter. If I marry him, will the name of my fief be Huakang or Sambuza? Head Lama Sangbuza just wants to take the opportunity to annex our family. I've heard that the mutants and Almighty Han love to help the weak and eradicate evil. If we ask them to help, even if they ask for a high reward, the Han can't possibly swallow our fiefs. Compared to the greedy head Lama Sangbuza, they are more reliable." The girl's words caused the robust man to fall silent, unable to refute her. The Tibetan noblewoman called out to the people around her and was about to walk towards River Styx. Suddenly, a loud reprimand came from not far away. A Tibetan lama, surrounded by a group of servants, was walking on the main street of the town. He was sitting on a platform carried by 4 healthy slaves. There were curtains in all 4 directions. Hanging from the curtains were all thumb-sized red corals. There were also colored glass, gold, silver, giant clam, agate crystal, and amber inlaid. It was extremely luxurious, dazzling in gold and jade. There were dozens of servants opening the way. They lit musk, sandalwood, dragon saliva, and agarwood. When the Tibetans on both sides of the road saw them, they hurriedly knelt on both sides and kowtowed, not daring to look directly at them. Even the Han caravan hurriedly avoided them. Only River Styx glanced at the large group of people indifferently, then continued walking on his own path. Mingi held a cold moth in his hand and played with it. The cold moth, which was carved out of ice and carved out of jade, looked like a beautiful piece of ice. It was originally a strange creature transformed from a demon. Mingi kept activating his supernatural power, so it was like a dead thing and looked like a handle. When the Lama's platform passed by River Styx, it suddenly stopped. A Tibetan carrying a scimitar hurriedly ran behind the curtains. After listening to the Lama's instructions in Tibetan, the curtains continued to move forward. The Tibetan man, carrying the scimitar, stood in front of River Styx and stopped him. Not far away, the servant of the Tibetan girl said softly, "It's the uncle of the regent Baluo Nai, the head Lama Yin Dan Gongbu. That Han is too daring." The head Lama Yin Dan Gongbu is the owner of Moda's house. With the protection of Patala Palace, no matter how capable he is, a servant of the head Lama, Yin Dan Gongbu, can still order him around. "Young master, it's better not to provoke someone you can't afford to offend for him." The noble girl bit her lower lip and looked extremely unwilling. She looked at the servant of the head Lama, Yin Dan Gongbu, and shouted at River Styx with a strange accent, "Han, the head Lama, Yin Dan Gongbu, has taken a liking to the jade worm in your hand. If you present the jade worm to him, you will receive the head Lama's blessing. If you refuse, the Buddha will punish you." I'm afraid it won't be Buddha who will punish me, but the head Lama Yin Dan Gongbu who will punish me. Someone whispered. The Tibetan looked as if it was a matter of course. Even though the head Lama Yin Dan Gongbu was not a powerful living Buddha, his nephew, the regent Baluo Nai, was the most powerful person in Tibet. He was the owner of Patala Palace. Among all the living Buddha lamas in Tibet, other than the most powerful living Buddhas who had reincarnated dozens of times, no one dared to not give him face. However, River Styx did not think that the regent Baluo Nai was worthy of his attention. He also did not think that Patala Palace in Tibet was anything special. Ever since he descended into this world, he had never seen such a reckless person. He did not come to Tibet with good intentions. There were still many positions in the diagram of gods and demons. He did not expect that before he could find trouble with those living Buddhas, someone would come knocking on his door. What was the difference between this and running into the king of hell? Outside the central plains, many people who heard the two words River Styx were already trembling with fear, living in a constant state of anxiety. Even Mount Amay, a top-notch sect, had to invite Chinong for a discussion. Many divine monks came one after another. Today was the first time they saw a lama with no more than third-rate magical power putting on airs and forcefully demanding the cold moth. Should River Styx say that he was extremely daring? It was better to say that he was reckless. The population of Tibet was no more than 1/100th of the great Ming dynasty. Even some of the big countries in the sea had more people than them. In terms of national power, they were even more inferior. In history, they had been beaten by the Mongols, and the Mongols were conquered by the Jurchens. Today, the Jurchens had hundreds of thousands of tribes, and about half of them had been refined into evil corpses by River Styx. Chapter 568. When the traveling merchants heard the Tibetan man's question and saw the great Lama Yin Dan Yulin's carriage leaving, one by one, they stopped to watch. The Tibetans who were originally kowtowing on the ground also stood up. They crossed their arms and stood on the side with cold eyes, as if they were watching the show. Some Tibetan men even put their hands on the scimitar hilt on their waists and stood behind the Tibetan man. When the Tibetan man saw that he had more people on his side, he became more and more arrogant. He shouted sternly, "Han man, are you going to defy the great Lama's order?" In River Styx's eyes, these people were like ants. He did not even have the temper to argue with them. He opened his mouth and smiled. "This thing in my hand is a very ominous thing. It is ominous. For the sake of your lives, it's better not to touch it." The Tibetan man did not know that River Styx was always honest and reliable. He thought that River Styx had politely declined. He immediately put his hand on the scimitar on his waist and sneered. What kind of ominous thing can do to the great Lama? The great Lama is the living Buddha of the world. He is extremely noble and powerful. Any ominous thing is nothing to him. Since you said that this is an ominous thing, the great Lama is the owner of this place. In order to protect everyone's safety, he has the right to take it. If you don't hand it over, you will be selling it on the market. We will deal with you accordingly. "Ha man, are you going against the law?" The Tibetan man showed a murderous look. He looked greedily at the silk Taoist robe on River Styx. Tibetan silk was more expensive than Chinese silk. It had always been dyed for Buddhist purposes. Although River Styx's robe was blue, it was dyed black with fuel. It was still a valuable item. The Tibetan man immediately wanted to kill him. At this time, someone shouted from the side, "Is your slave going to commit murder on the street?" The Tibetan man looked back and saw the noble girl leading a group of guards between the two of them. She turned her head and said to him, "Great Lama Yundan Hongbu is a respected Buddha. He is such a fair person. How could he let you come here with such an evil tone when he is asking for offerings from others? It must be that servant of yours who is so cunning to use his name to commit evil deeds. As the daughter of the Hua family, how could I allow you to slander his name?" She plucked a silver Ga Wu from her head. It was inlaid with agate and gold. She passed it to Chinong and said politely, "This lowly slave has tarnished the reputation of Tibetans. Please forgive her. I am willing to use this precious instrument to exchange for the jade worm in your hand as an offering to the head lama. Chenong only smiled faintly. He felt that this girl in front of him was somewhat interesting. Did she think that he would owe her a favor by exchanging something for the frost moth in his hand? However, he still smiled faintly and said, I'm not exaggerating when I say that this thing is a ferocious object. It's just that this cold borer can't be exposed to the wind. If it leaves my hands, it will come back to life when it sees the wind. At that time, it will turn into a blue ferocious insect and pounce on anyone it sees. Those who are attacked will immediately turn into ice, and their souls will be devoured by it. Since you want this jade worm, I'll give it to you. But there's one thing, you must hold this jade worm tightly. Once it catches the wind, the consequences will be unpredictable. As soon as he finished speaking, River Styx took out the cold boar jade slough and passed it to the girl. The girl was skeptical, but she held it tightly in her hand and stuffed it into the Tibetan man's arms. She shouted, You lowly slave, take it and leave. If you dare to come and cause trouble again, don't blame the Hua family for informing the head lama of Yunnan Mercury. Let's see if he will punish you. The Tibetan man held the cold borer in his hand and glared fiercely at River Styx. However, the difference between a Tibetan aristocrat and a slave was too big. Although he was the head lama of Yunnan Mercury, he was still a slave. If this aristocrat in front of him complained to the head lama of Yunnan Mercury, he would not have a good ending. He could only curse and leave. The aristocrat girl, Hua Kong Solingzam, insisted on protecting River Styx. Her servants and guards were very puzzled. The leader of the men said softly, Young master, that Han Taoist priest is being humiliated like this, and he doesn't even dare to talk back. He doesn't look like a very capable person. He doesn't even dare to scold a slave. How would he dare to fight with a demon? Unexpectedly, the girl did not even look at him. When she saw that River Styx was about to leave, she hurriedly followed him. An old servant came down and pulled the man aside. He said in Tibetan, Duojin, you don't know, the Han people do not value bravery as a good quality. They value silence and keeping a low profile. The Han people's sorcerers will not do anything that they think is boorish. Of course, it is considered boorish to argue with a slave. This is a strange tradition of the Han people. Sometimes some lowly slaves and women can have very powerful spells. Huakong Solingzam greeted River Styx warmly. The weather in the Great Snow Mountain is very cold in Tibet. We are wearing leather jackets, but you are wearing a silk robe. I think you must be a master with magic power. I beg you to save our Hua Kong family. An evil demon cursed my father and cruelly massacred my people. Solang Tome came to meet to find a virtuous and compassionate master like you. Without waiting for River Styx to reply, she knelt down on one knee and was about to kowtow to River Styx. The guards who followed her, including the man who did not believe in River Styx, also knelt down helplessly. They shouted in a strange Han language, Please save our master. River Styx heard them calling him Taoist master in a strange tone. He calmly shook his head and said, I still have something to do. I could take a look, but I don't know the whole story. How would I dare to interfere in your life and death situation? After saying that, he casually pointed his finger. The few people felt an unparalleled force lifting them up. Solingzam was naturally overjoyed, but the Tibetan man was extremely shocked. At this moment, there was a commotion in the distance. A few people shouted in a shrill voice, Yunnan Mercury Cloth Great Lama is assassinated. Yunnan Mercury Cloth Great Lama is cursed by the shaman. Solingzam and the rest turned around to look. They saw countless indistinct blue light spots flying towards them. Yunnan Mercury Cloth Great Lama was in the center of these light spots. He was wailing in agony. His wide robe spread open like a big bird's wings, helping him to fly several feet high. However, this could not stop the blue light spots from going in and out of his body. Every time they went in and out, it was like tearing the flesh from Yunnan Mercury Cloth Great Lama's body. Yunnan Mercury Cloth Great Lama's bodyguards and servants also fled in all directions in fear. The servant who asked River Styx for the cold moth earlier screamed and ran towards them. His face was filled with fear. When he saw River Styx, he was so frightened that his expression became twisted. He opened his mouth wide and was about to shout something when a blue cold moth flew out of his mouth. Immediately after that, his entire body turned into an ice sculpture in front of Solingsham. Then, because of the frightened people around him, he fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. Yundan Mercury Cloth Great Llama howled in midair for a while. He suddenly fell to the ground and turned into a pile of ice shards. In just a few breaths, more than a quarter of the people on the street were dead. The frightened merchants and Tibetans hid in the houses to seek refuge. Yundan Mercury Cloth Great Llama's bodyguards turned into ice sculptures one by one in front of Solingsham. It was not until River Styx reached out with his hand that the blue ice worms that filled the sky turned back into a cold moth that looked like it was carved out of ice jade. It lay obediently in his palm. Chapter 569. Seeing how River Styx had captured those terrifying blue worms with just a pinch of his fingers, Solong Chomu and the rest were both surprised and afraid. They were surprised because this person before them was truly a master with magical power. He had killed the Yundan Mercurial Cloth-Head Llama as easily as killing an ant. It was clear that even the Patala Palace's living Buddha could not compare to him. They were afraid because this person killed without batting an eye. The Yundan Mercurial Cloth-Head Llama had a noble status. Tibetan people valued status the most. Even the living Buddha would not reincarnate into a serf. He would only stay in a noble family like the Yundan Mercurial Cloth-Head Llama. The reason Solong Choma dared to scold the head Lama's beloved servant was because the Hua Kong family might worship the reincarnation of the living Buddha, but the servants would never have a reincarnation of the living Buddha. This was the so-called equality of all living beings. However, under River Styx's hands, they had truly witnessed the equality of all living beings. Regardless of identity or status, River Styx had granted them an equal death. Seeing how the head Lama, whose status was much higher than theirs, was easily killed by River Styx, Solong Chomu could not help but feel fear. He even buried some disrespectful thoughts in his heart. In their eyes, River Styx had probably become a demon like Mahakala that was suppressed by the Buddha. They could not help but fear and revere him. With just a glance, River Styx had seen through all the secrets in their hearts. He only asked indifferently, "You beg me to help you. Now, I seem to have killed someone with some status here. If you still need my help, tell me the details in detail. If you change your mind, tell me as soon as possible, and I will not interfere." As soon as he said this, a servant tugged at his young master's sleeve from behind. Even the older servant looked at Solong Chomu, hoping that she would reject the demon's kindness as soon as possible. Unexpectedly, Solong Chomu gritted his teeth and knelt down to kowtow. "Great master, please help me eliminate the demon that cursed my father." River Styx waved his hand and said, "First, tell me how you became enemies." Solong Chomu explained that the one who harmed her family was a serf who used to be under her fief. The customs of Tibet were very different from those of the Central Plains. There were still some farmers in the Central Plains who were tenants. Their status was equal to that of a landlord, and they were only dependent on the landlord. But in Tibet, except for the aristocratic house owners, those who farmed the land were all slaves of the aristocrats. Therefore, they were called serfs. The aristocrats who owned the slaves killed the serfs and often persecuted them to death. Compared to the Central Plains, the people of the Central Plains lived a hard life, but in the eyes of the serfs in Tibet, it was like heaven. Although the servants of the rich families in the Central Plains were subject to their master's family laws and were often dragged away to be beaten to death or reported to the authorities for illness, they still had the protection of the Great Ming Dynasty's laws on the surface. On the other hand, the Tibetan serfs did not have any laws or the protection of the lamas. Therefore, this place was the main camp of the West Kunlun devil cult. Countless barbarian monks, demon cultivators, or lamas disguised as local lamas accepted blood sacrifices in the name of Mahakala and the master of the corpse dolphin forest. Using human skin, human bones, blood essence, and soul refinement techniques, it was common for them to kill thousands. If it was in the Central Plains, if the devil of the evil path sacrificed dozens of people, the sword immortals of Amei, Wudong, and Kunlun would come down to slay the devil. Although Ame was a little overbearing, it protected the people, killed demons, and forbade the cultivation of demons. It upheld the righteous path and conformed to the will of heaven. It accumulated tens of millions of external skills, but it was for the benefit of all living beings. It was a righteous sect worthy of its name. In comparison, the Tibetan heretics watched as the people of Tibet were cooked. The evil disciples of the devil path used blood sacrifices to kill people. What's more, they themselves were a layer of armor for the devil path. They used blood sacrifices as an excuse to kill living beings cruelly. Among the cultivators here, it was hard to say how many of them adhered to the teachings of Buddhism and how many of them used the name of Buddhist monks to do evil things. Of course, this was not what Solong Tsomu said herself. What she said was probably how the son of the serf was sinister, cunning, vicious, and despicable. On the surface, he pretended to be refined and intelligent, deceiving her into having a good impression of him. Later on, when her father saw that the person had evil intentions and wanted to get rid of this hidden danger, he was persuaded by the ignorant Solong Tsomu to let him go. That person actually returned kindness with enmity. After she let him go, he fled to another place and learned the magic of the devil for his whole life. In turn, he cursed her father, persecuted her family, and cruelly treated the kind and upright people like her. On the other hand, the truth about the serfs was deduced by River Styx herself. At this point, Mingi knew that what Solensam had said was only her side of the story. Not to mention anything else, just the fact that Solensam's father had seen through the serf's son's treacherous heart and wanted to take the initiative to get rid of the hidden danger had given himself away. To be honest, if it were me and someone wanted to kill me, I would definitely not think that I had evil intentions that caused me to be harmed. I would then magnanimously forgive the person who wanted to harm me. When River Styx heard this, she felt a little disdainful. The truth was definitely not like what Solong Tsomu had said. No matter how these people twisted the truth to lie to her, as long as River Styx pinched her fingers to calculate, the truth would naturally be clear. The reason why the rash and violent second-generation disciples of Ame repeatedly made mistakes without committing an unforgivable sin was mostly due to the ability of the older generation of Ame. There were always mortals in the world who wanted to deceive cultivators or steal opportunities. They schemed secretly, but they did not know that heaven's secrets were above them. For cultivators who could calculate, no matter what kind of deceitful lies they could easily see through. The reason why River Styx wore so many disguises and lived freely in the world was because of the hard strength in her hands, the unfathomable cultivation of herself, and the connections in her family. Without strength, she could only rely on temporary foresight. Even if she could gain some benefits for a while, she would still not be able to defeat those old foxes in the end. River Styx's primordial spirit reflected the secrets of heaven. She calculated according to Solong Tsomu's words. Solong Tsomu's logic was correct, but there were some details that were off the mark. The enemy who had harmed her family was a serf. Speaking of which, the two of them used to have a good impression of each other. Solong Tsomu had helped her a little. Because the serf's son had a delicate appearance, was well-educated, and had a slightly different aura from the average Tibetan serf, he was promoted to be a servant in the Hokong manor. He was able to learn some Buddhist scriptures. Later, Solong Tsomu's father, in order to curry favor with a head lama, sacrificed the mute sister of the serf's son and made her into a human-skin drum ritual implement. This ritual implement could only be made by a girl with a pure soul. Solong Tsomu's father had some misgivings and would not have used his sister. Unfortunately, there was nothing else in his fief for a girl who was born deaf and mute. Such a precious blood sacrifice material was hard to come by. Even if it was in someone else's fief, it would have been offered to the head lama. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for him to curry favor with the head lama, Sambuza. The serf's son was only a slave with some potential. How could it compare to the favor of a head lama? Naturally, Solong Tsomu's father killed the serf sister. He had thought that the serf's son would be as tactful as his parents and would not dare to complain. Perhaps he would simply believe the nonsense of the soul of a girl who is offered to Buddha will return to heaven. Unexpectedly, the youth had read many Buddhist scriptures and knew many truths. Unlike his parents, he did not dare to express his anger, or perhaps he did not even dare to be angry. Instead, he buried his hatred deep in his heart. As time passed, Solong Tsomu's father saw through him. He wanted to rush out to eliminate this hidden danger, but he was stopped by Solong Tsomu, who did not know the truth. Naturally, the youth knew that this was only temporary. The slave master, who had a dagger on his back, was determined to kill him. Perhaps he even managed to evade the slave master's attacks a few times before fleeing in panic. Naturally, the relatives he left behind in the slave master's territory did not meet a good end either. They were all turned into human blood, intestines, and livers, as well as cakes made from black flour and human blood. A mixture of 5 types of meat, including human flesh, the skull of a child born without a knot, filled with blood and mustard seeds, the skin of a little boy, human blood and brain placed in a bowl, a human oil lamp with its wick made from hair, and a huge dough made from human gallbladder, brain, blood, and internal organs. All of these were sacrificed to the Mahakala demon. With such a vendetta, not to mention killing Solong Tsomu's entire family, even burning their souls with demonic fire and cutting them into pieces was in accordance with reason and karma, according to River Styx's point of view. However, River Styx knew that summer insects cannot talk about ice. With his worldview, it was impossible for him to agree with a Tibetan nobleman who would not even reincarnate into a serf's body. In the eyes of those Tibetan noblemen, their actions were in accordance with Buddhist principles and mercy. What the son of a serf had done was treason. Why did he not wait for Solong Tsomu's father to kill him, but instead boldly escape? What was worse was that he actually dared to come back for revenge. He was rebelling against the heavens. River Styx could only sigh and say to Solong Tsomu, Buddha said that all living things are equal. Good karma begets good karma. Evil karma begets evil karma. The enemy you provoked is the evil karma you brought upon yourself. I can't help you. Solong Tsomu blinked his beautiful big eyes and asked, The evil karma I brought upon myself, Master, are you saying that I let him go, and that's why I have this retribution? River Styx could not help but fall silent. Suddenly, he struck out with his palm and killed Solong Tsomu. The bodyguard at the side stared fiercely. He pulled out his scimitar and chopped at River Styx's head. The old servant said sternly, Devil, why did you harm my master? River Styx sighed. Summer insects cannot speak of ice. After saying this, he was no longer in the mood to speak. He waved his hand and struck out a bolt of lightning, turning everything within a radius of several zhang into boiling lava. The group of people were all killed. Looking at the mess on the ground and the large pit in the middle of the street, Mingi recalled Solong Tsomu's large eyes when he looked at him. He suddenly scolded fiercely. Ancestor, how could you not see that a girl who looks decent has actually taken the llama's nectar and great incense? Note 1. Someone who has eaten sh*t. Does she deserve to look at me with those eyes? After saying this, he stomped his feet fiercely on the ground. He released the heavenly demon from the celestial demon painting and ordered, You few, kill that Lama Sangbuza and the entire temple. Then throw them all into the cesspool. Since you like to eat sh*t so much, I'll let you eat as much as you want. River Styx made up his mind. After he absorbed the souls of the llamas into the celestial demon painting, he must refine them into filthy demons and make them fall into the cesspool hell forever. After this incident, Mingi really understood why those llamas could preach the Buddhist doctrine of all living beings are equal in a slave society. It turned out that they did not regard serfs as human beings at all, but as cattle and horses. The monks of the Han Dynasty could watch the common people raise cattle, sheep, and horses and kill chickens and ducks. The Tibetan lamas could naturally watch the slave owners persecute the serfs and kill them to offer sacrifices. The difference was that the Han monks could not eat meat because all living beings were equal. They did not stop other people from eating meat, and they refused to eat other sentient beings. However, the lamas not only watched the slave masters eat people, they even happily became slave masters themselves and ate people with them. All love will come. Impermanence is hard to come by. This Buddhist land is not as good as the ancestors' pure land of devil. It is better to serve the devil than to serve the Buddha. I only wish for all living things to always enter my door and enjoy the bliss of the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Always leave the shore. Never enter the sea of bitterness. Recite my name and leave all hardships. No need to work, no wish to suffer. I alone bear all the suffering of all living things. The great wish is the supreme demon lord of ultimate bliss. The great wish is the supreme demon lord of ultimate bliss. The great wisdom saves the suffering supreme demon lord. Chapter 570. The majestic Zamlingi Holy Land was quiet. Among the layers of palaces, countless lights were burning in the small dark halls. The novice monks carefully walked in the dark corners. The huge and magnificent palace was silent at this time. Thousands of lamas and novice monks were living here again. It was even quieter than the wilderness. This was not an easy thing to do. The rules in the tantric sect were very strict. The more emphasis was placed on seniority, the more attention was paid to the rules. Without these rules, the status of the living Buddha could not be reflected, and the solemnity and holiness of the living Buddha could not be maintained. Therefore, they could not point at the living Buddha here. They could not talk nonsense in front of the living Buddha. The novice monks could not look at the living Buddha, and they could not talk about the living Buddha with their tongues. They could not talk loudly, and they could not act without authorization. Such a solemn and holy existence. If they moved carelessly, they would die. Even if the officials of the great Ming dynasty came, as long as they offended the authority of the living Buddha, they would be severely punished in the name of grave sins, questioning and defaming the Buddha. The Tibetans were never afraid of sacrificing tens of thousands of lives to maintain the dignity of the living Buddha. Under such circumstances, the great Ming dynasty, who did not dare to provoke the border, would certainly not risk the instability of the border and fall out with the gurus of the Zamlingi Holy Land for a few officials. Every day, the living Buddhas here would produce hundreds of kilograms of the popular big and small incense, sweet dew, red and white bodhi for the novice monks and lamas to take and comprehend. Only the Tibetan nobles and slave owners with wisdom and Buddha nature would be bestowed by the Zamlingi Holy Land and happily take the gifts of the gurus. The lamas who kept these sacred objects in golden vases and golden caskets looked solemn and respectful. With pious movements, they carried these objects away from the living Buddha's residence. A Dharma protector lama with strong muscles and bones carried a golden plate covered with a black cloth and hurried over with 8 lamas from outside the Holy Land. They carefully avoided those acolytes who carried the sacred objects with meticulous movements and headed in the direction they came from. The structure of the palace was not suitable for daylighting, and the lighting conditions on the plateau were not good either. Under the dim light of the butter lamp, they stepped on the thick woven carpet and smelled the fragrance of the rich spices in the hall. Instantly, their tiredness was gone and their spirits were refreshed. They held the golden plate in their hands even more cautiously. The surroundings were beautifully decorated, inlaid with agate, crystal, coral, pearl, and azure glass. Of course, most of it was still gold. The eaves of the palace were pointed outwards, and the corners of the roof were raised. The copper roof tiles were gilded with gold, and the ridges were decorated with gilded sutras, vases, scorpion fish, and golden-winged crows. The walls under the eaves were decorated with gilded copper ornaments. The images were all of the 8 treasures of Buddhism. The pillars and beams were covered with brightly colored paintings and gorgeous carvings. The interior of the palace in the Zamlingi Holy Land was crisscrossed with corridors and halls. The space was winding and unpredictable. Even the middle-aged guardian lama, who was familiar with the layout, had a hint of solemnity and piety when he was in it. Along the way, The Gabalabone ornaments, pagoda, sutras, and prayer flags were getting more and more mysterious. The strong waves of psyche power were crisscrossing in the void. Countless gilded sutras were circulating on the surrounding instruments from time to time, emitting a hint of glazed Buddhist light. An old lama wearing a pilu hat was sitting on a lianhua stool. He was skinny, and his facial features were deeply sunken. However, within his skin and flesh, there was a divine brilliance like that of Vajra. When he saw the middle-aged guardian lama coming in, he only silently chanted the name of Buddha and asked, "Are you here for the murder of the two head lamas, Yundan Mercury Cloth and Sangbuza?" The two head lamas who were obedient to us were killed on the same day. The headquarter is extremely shocked. We must not let this kind of unpardonable murderer, who has come out of the Buddha's body and blood. The headquarter has already ordered the guardian lama to find the whereabouts of this person. We will definitely seek justice for the two head lamas. The guardian lama replied, "Dharma King Saragatikin, I have ordered the local nobles to search carefully." Finally, at the place where the murderer committed the crime, they found a trace of the murderer's traces. After saying that, he offered the golden plate in his hand. Dharma King Saragatikin took the golden plate. He did not look at it immediately. Instead, he stroked the black cloth that covered the golden plate and praised, "Well done." After saying that, he silently closed his eyes to sense. Below, whether it was the middle-aged guardian lama in the lead or the 8 lamas behind him, they all revealed a look of awe. Dharma King Saragatikin opened his eyes abruptly and shouted, "Scoundrel!" His primordial spirit had already exchanged dozens of blows with the primordial spirit of River Styx that was left on the golden plate. Although River Styx was not in front of him, the supreme magical power of free-form incarnation was already above this person's nature. Therefore, with just a little bit of weak psyche power, he was able to fight to a draw. It was not until the other old lamas, who were like dead men, opened their eyes at the same time that he was barely able to expel this bit of psyche power. River Styx stood on the Tibetan plateau thousands of miles away, surrounded by lush grasslands. Suddenly, he raised his head and looked in the direction of Lessa, the center of the esoteric sect. He laughed softly and said, "It is not so easy to take the things of the ancestor. If you want my things, then exchange them with your life. I have hidden them in the diagram of gods and demons." Dharma King Saragatikin flipped open the black handkerchief that covered the golden plate, revealing a stem borer that was carved out of ice and jade. At this moment, the psyche power of River Styx had been expelled by them together, leaving only an obscure and mysterious power and a greedy thought that made Dharma King Saragatikin tremble with fear. "I'm afraid this is the reason why the two head lamas, Yundan Mercurial Cloth and Sambuza, were killed? Such a strange ancient insect. Even if it is only left with its shell, it still has such evil roots. It is indeed a ferocious creature. I will have to enlighten it." The 2 old lamas beside him, who were already withered, smiled and echoed, "Subduing the heretics is the supreme magical power of Buddha. If Dharma King Saragatikin can subdue this ancient ferocious creature, he will definitely be able to add an immeasurable magical power to the orthodoxy, and his Dharma cultivation will improve. He will be the first Dharma King of the sect." Even though Dharma King Saragatikin's skin had been polished like diamond, he could not help but reveal a smile. He picked up the jade insect on the golden plate, opened his mouth, and chanted in an obscure Sanskrit voice. Immeasurable Buddhist light emitted from the back of his head and gathered towards the jade insect in his hand. River Styx, who was thousands of miles away, felt an exquisite psyche power trying to invade the nature of the frost moth. However, the frost moth was originally a mutated demon transformed from the endless demons in the diagram of gods and demons. If it had an essence, it would be the essence of the demon in the realm of desire. Upon being affected by the psyche power, it was about to make a ruckus, but River Styx managed to suppress it and urged the dozens of sky demons in the diagram of gods and demons to invade it with supreme psyche power. In the holy land of Zamlingi, Dharma King Saragatikin smiled and chanted even louder. He could already feel his Buddhist psyche power invading the nature of the frost moth, and he seemed to be able to control most of the power of this strange insect. Seeing that he was about to succeed, he could not help but be overjoyed. However, in an instant, the frost moth in his hand suddenly changed. In the blink of an eye, it woke up and drilled into Dharma King Saragatikin's mouth like lightning. It turned into a cold current along his trachea and was about to seep into Dharma King Saragatikin's organs. Dharma King Saragatikin's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly used his psyche power to suppress it, but how could he suppress it? His body suddenly swelled up, and his withered muscles and bones quickly recovered, becoming full and swollen. A glaze-like Buddhist light flowed in his body, and a body like Vajra was restored in front of everyone. His hands formed the Mahamudra of Tantra, and he shouted, "Junior brothers, quickly invite the Bodhisattva." The skinny old lama suddenly stood up. At this time, Dharma King Saragatikin could no longer bear it. He stood up and jumped off the bed. As soon as he took a step, a thin layer of ice appeared on his chest. After 2 swift steps, Dharma King Saragatikin's entire body was frozen into a statue. A frost moth the size of a thumb drilled out of his chest and suddenly expanded to the size of a water tank. This giant frost moth fluttered its wings and flew up, exploding into thousands of cold stars in the hall. Then, countless cold stars gathered in one place and drilled into the bodies of the remaining people in the hall. In an instant, their blood essence was sucked dry, and they turned into dried corpses. These frost moths drilled back into the bodies of the dried corpses. Dharma King Saragatikin's primordial spirit was still frozen in his body. At this time, he could feel countless strange demons that looked like frost moths attached to his primordial spirit and greedily devoured it. Chapter 571. With a single thought from River Styx's Sky Devil primordial spirit, the 6-winged cold boar dispersed and flew towards other parts of the huge palace like lightning. Countless cold boar devil insects had 6 wings that were like blades. When they retracted their wings, the shape was like a dark blue flying knife. When they spread their wings, the 6 flying knives spun rapidly like shooting stars. Wherever they went, humans and animals died. When the cold boar devil insects circled around the neck of an ordinary llama, they would turn into frozen corpses and fall to the ground. Even the head llama, with a profound cultivation base, would have his blood and soul sucked dry when these devil insects pounced on him, turning him into a devil corpse that was driven by the strange insects. In just a short while, the sacred ground of Zamlingi was already littered with corpses and turned into an icy hell. When the cold boar drilled into the head of the llama, who cultivated his body, in an instant he grew ice scales and horns. His bones had a strange, mysterious ice structure. His entire body was filled with the essence of the 1,000-year-old cold ice. He swelled and mutated. His withered human body immediately grew over 10 feet tall. He was sprawled on the ground with horns protruding from his head. He looked just like a mutated devil. The appearance of this devil was like a bag of bones. Its lower body was like an insect that was bent at the waist on the ground. Its lower body was like a locust, while its upper body was still in human form. However, 2 heads grew out from under its ribs. A pair of bony arms that held flying knives shaped like the cold boar grew out from its elbows. Similarly, a pair of bone-chilling arms that looked like white bones grew out from its shoulders. The devil with 3 heads and 6 arms held 6 cold boar-long and narrow knives. They were bloodthirsty and ferocious. They pounced on the remaining llama, who were still resisting in groups of 3 to 5. Just when there were countless casualties in the Zamlingi sacred ground, an ancient hall in the backyard suddenly shone brightly. An old llama who was barefoot stepped on an udumbra flower shone brightly under his feet and shook off 2 demons that were pouncing towards him. He flew into the air and saw countless cold stem borers and mutated demons wreaking havoc in the Zamlingi sacred ground. He shouted sternly, "Demon, how dare you?" Anger could not help but show on his mummified face. The Adumbra flower under his feet spun and split into countless golden Adumbra flowers. They stacked on top of each other and covered the entire Zamlingi Holy Land. River Styx used his primordial spirit to control the frost moth demon insects. He immediately felt a restraining force that restrained the countless demon insects. Countless Adumbra flowers accompanied the Buddha's light Zen city and formed a huge enchantment that covered dozens of miles. River Styx let out a strange cry. Vajra Realm's Yutan Manchala. This huge enchantment was like a complete world. It was shaped like a lianhua, but there were countless Adumbra flowers, innumerable Sanskrit, and endless Zen chants. It was as if thousands of people were chanting scriptures at the same time. They intertwined and formed endless golden Adumbra flowers that surrounded a circular mandala world. Infinite Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni manifested Vajra, heavenly dragon, Buddhist pagoda, golden lotus, and Buddhist lamp. It was like a Buddhist kingdom. At the center of this Buddhist kingdom, surrounded by infinite Buddha, bodhisattvas, and arhats, there was a sky high and high. It was filled with mandala cities. Buddhas who were as tall as this mandala world sat at the top and were the center of the world. Immeasurable light and immeasurable mana came from it. The Yutan mandala that contained the cold boar demon bug kept shrinking until it turned into a golden Adumbra flower in the old lama's hand. It was pinched in the old lama's hand and emitted colorful light. No matter how fierce the cold boar demon bug was, it couldn't break out. However, the old lama was quite surprised and thought to himself, "This mana is extraordinary." This Vajra realm's Yutan Manchala came from the time Wheel Vajra embryo hidden Manchala. It evolved from the Yutan flower form of the six truths Dharma. I don't know where this demon bug came from, but it has the cold boar chi. Even a Yutan sacred flower can't withstand it. If it wasn't for the thousands of years of psyche power from the monks in the sacred ground, it wouldn't have been able to trap it. At this time, the remaining lamas had come back to their senses. They saw that the sacred ground was in ruins and the magnificent palace was almost in ruins. They couldn't help but feel sad. They put their palms together and prayed, "Dharma King Sakya, we have suffered a great demon disaster, and Dharma King Saragatikan died tragically in this disaster. Countless lamas and Buddhas have died. Dharma King, please use the Vajra's angry eyes to subdue this demon." Dharma King Sakya's face was also black. He asked them to stand up and said, "This demon's sin is unforgivable. I will use my supreme mana to subdue it." Dharma King Saragatikan's cultivation is not deep enough, which is why he is facing this disaster. He will be reborn in 16 years, and you can go and receive him. In the Yutan Mandala enchantment of the Vajra realm, countless cold boars gathered together and turned into a mysterious underworld ring. The jade ring fell into the abyss at the bottom of the mandala enchantment. With a slight vibration, it released several cold boar flying daggers, which broke out of the mandala enchantment. However, when they were shown by the Buddha's light in the enchantment, the devil chi in their bodies immediately faded, and in the blink of an eye, they were dyed with a layer of gold. The few cold boars were imprinted on their foreheads by the golden Adumbra enchantment. Immediately, they released a weak telekinetic force and merged into the entire mandala enchantment. Dharma King Sakya, who was holding the golden Adumbra enchantment, immediately sensed this change. His eyes moved slightly, and he thought to himself, "These strange insects are wonderful. They are born with a strange cold chi from the ancient underworld. They can penetrate through heaven and earth and destroy everything. It coincides with the calamity of great destruction and great quietus in the Dharma. If I can purify and refine them into my mandala enchantment, with a little thought, it will be a great magical power, and I can make the demon behind me lose everything. Isn't that wonderful?" As soon as he finished his thought, he activated his telekinetic force. The mandala enchantment was instantly brightened. Endless Zen chants and Buddha's light instantly became 10 times bigger. The power of the mandala was complete, and it turned into a Buddha's light of thought. It continuously infected the group of cold borers. Even though the ring of Xianming and underworld formed by the cold borers moved through the void and the two-world womb, it could only buy them some time. Gradually, they were covered and infected by the golden Adumbra. Thousands of miles away, River Styx did not seem to be doing anything. He only resisted passively, allowing his ring of Xianming and underworld to be slowly dyed with a layer of golden light. The foreign telekinetic force purified the demon in the nature of the cold borers. Soon, half of the cold borers sealed in the mandala were purified. In the end, River Styx even slowly stripped away his telekinetic force and gave the cold borers to Dharma King Sakya, as if he wanted to cut off his tail and escape. Dharma King Sakya only knew that the demon who fought with him had admitted defeat. Although he was still cautious, he did not suspect anything. When the group of cold borers were all dyed with the fragrance of the Adumbra and coated with golden Buddha's light, a jade ring turned into a golden ring and fell into the hands of the Buddha in the middle of the mandala. River Styx then smiled and said, he transformed into the Mahesvara demon King Boishuan. In the next life, he will do evil deeds. From that Buddha, he will hear the Vajra field and destroy the Dharma of tranquility. He will surpass the tribulation of 40,000 monks. He will achieve the 3 despises and 3 bodhi of Abhidharma. They are called miraculous attainment of Dharma light Tathagata, offering, right omniscient, enlightened, good death, worldly solution, supreme sage, controlling husband, Deva master, Buddha, world honored. The world is called tranquility and peace. The tribulation is called tranquility. The heavenly demon's primordial spirit above his head turned into a Buddha's Dharmakaya. This heavenly demon's golden body was called miraculous attainment of Dharma light Tathagata. The dozens of heavenly demons in the celestial demon painting immediately turned into bodhisattvas and arhats. They emitted boundless light and used their mind power to stimulate the nature of the demon in the cold borers. With one thought, they became Buddhas and turned into countless sons of Buddha. Dharma King Sakya did not notice that the demon insects that he had enlightened had lost their demonic nature. The demon insects that were transformed into bodhisattvas and arhats in the celestial demon painting had the same connection as the bodhisattvas and arhats. The golden ring flew from the hands of the Buddha in the middle of the mandala and turned into a golden ring. It landed on the neck of the Buddha and turned into a ring. The ring emitted boundless light, and the mind power of the celestial demon painting poured into the mandala. The appearance of the Buddha in it gradually changed, just like the miraculous attainment of Dharma light Tathagata's golden body formed by the heavenly demon's primordial spirit above River Styx's head. The countless bodhisattvas and arhats transformed into bodhisattvas and arhats through their connection. To Dharma King Sakya's horror, the golden Adumbra flower in his hand slowly turned blood red. In an instant, it was infected by the blood-red light. Even the Adumbra flower slowly turned into a red spider lily. The blood-red red spider lily opened the mandala enchantment and swallowed Dharma King Sakya, who was caught off guard. Then River Styx gently shook the celestial demon, painting in his hand. In the blink of an eye, one of the empty heavenly demon seats was sent into the mandala enchantment thousands of miles away. Boundless demons, and heavenly demon king worked together to erase Dharma King Sakya's original self and turned him into a heavenly demon. The blood-red red spider lily opened up again, and the mandala enchantment swallowed the entire Zamlingi Holy Land. Then it shrunk into an infinitesimally small blood-red light spot and disappeared into the void. Mingi opened his eyes, and the blood-red equinox flower that appeared in the void drilled into the space between his eyebrows and fell into the void of 9 heavens and 10 earths in the celestial demon diagram. The mandala enchantment opened quietly and turned into another world. On the celestial demon diagram, a blood-red red spider lily suddenly appeared in the hand of the celestial demon king. Chapter 572. The heavenly demons are furious because of Shushan's outsider Shionda came out from under the waterfall naked. The Yarlung Zongbo River Valley in southern Tibet was rich in rainfall. The mountainous terrain of the plateau created many natural waterfalls. It was still early in the morning, and a thin layer of frost had condensed on the pebbled ground. Shionda cut his palm with the edge of the Vajrapai and sprinkled his blood on the altar. The blood immediately froze into a bloody frost. The long streamers weaved from the hair of the dead fluttered in the strong wind of the plateau. The simple and crude altar was merely a pile of rocks. Shionda drank a strange liquid that was a mixture of dachira flowers, the blood of cattle and sheep, and the venom of poisonous snakes, scorpions, and poisonous centipedes. At the same time, he painted some mysterious runes on his body with a crimson paint that was stained with his own blood. The blood-red magical runes, together with the blue tattoos on his body, emitted all sorts of strange waves of psychic power. If a Taoist cultivator who was proficient in curses were here, he would be able to tell that these were some shallow Azura magic talismans. Many unorthodox cultivators would use these talismans to refine some unorthodox magical artifacts, such as white bone streamers and ghost bags. However, Cheonda's magical power was so shallow that he had to squeeze out his own life force to cast such curses. Soon, under the effect of the anesthetic mixed with the knockout drugs, Cheonda's consciousness fell into confusion and obscurity. The magic talismans on his body and the simple altar had triggered an indescribable consciousness in the unseen world. Cheonda trembled all over, foaming at the mouth. With a chaotic and trembling voice, he recited the spell loudly, guiding all sorts of mysterious demons from the void to descend onto the altar and onto a little man tied up with barley stalks. Dozens of miles away, in a manor belonging to a local nobleman, an old man lying on a large bed suddenly let out a miserable howl. His body seemed to be bitten by invisible poisonous insects, as black and blue wounds began to appear on his body. The guards in the manor with machetes in their hands were instantly awakened. In a panic, they found a respected lama and recited the scriptures for the old nobleman beside the bed. As the mysterious chanting echoed in the room, the old man, who was trembling all over, gradually calmed down. Seeing that the old man had fallen asleep, the middle-aged man next to him asked carefully, "Master, is that demon still cursing, Master?" The Lama was silent for a long time before he replied, "My power can only temporarily relieve Lord Huakang's pain. Although it can stop the devil's curse, Lord Huakang's condition will not improve in the long run. You should go to the Jiakang Temple or the Patala Palace to relieve the curse." The middle-aged Tibetan replied in a low voice, "Young master has already gone to invite the great Lama Sang Buza. Can we buy enough time for the great Lama to arrive?" The Lama pondered for a moment, then instructed, "Give old master Hua Kong the sweet dew pill. Every day, offer a mixture of a cow, a goat, human blood, human intestines, liver, and heart as a sacrifice to Ma Kala. Use a skull bowl to hold water and wipe his body. Use butter and human oil to rub on his wounds. It should be able to last until 2 months later. That demon isn't that powerful. He's just more cunning and vicious. The magic he learned from the Han is not enough to contend against the power of Buddha." The curse lasted for 2 hours before Lord Huakong completely calmed down and fell asleep out of exhaustion. Dozens of miles away at the mountain pass, Kionda collapsed weakly on the ground. He was sweating profusely. His exhausted body could even be killed by an antelope with its horn. Kionda weakly crawled to the neatly folded clothes beside him and took out a rough gao carved from wood. Kionda's tired face suddenly burst into tears. He whimpered in a low voice and weakly called out in Tibetan, "Gesang, Gesang, Ama Abba." In Tibetan, Gesang meant good times and happiness. It represented a kind of good wishes. It was very rare for a serf to have a daughter with a name. If she could be given this beautiful name, it represented the love and expectation of her family. It was even rarer for this name to be used on a mute Tibetan girl. Kionda's formerly plump skin was now sunken to the point that he was only skin and bones. White hair as white as snow appeared at his temples. The wrinkles on his face were also very deep. Such a situation appeared on a young man in his 20s. It meant that his blood essence had dried up and his lifespan had been greatly damaged. A conservative estimate would be that he could not live for more than 20 years. The medicinal effect of the datura flower had not faded yet. It was rare that Kionda did not fall into a deep and unforgettable memory of hatred. He pinched the worn-out Gao and fell into a dreamlike illusion. He vaguely saw his beautiful sister holding the Gesang flower under the sun, smiling as beautiful as an auspicious goddess. He dreamed of his Abba and Amma, their faces blurred, the fragrance of butter tea, the sweetness of highland barley, and the beauty and generosity of the girl in his dream, so long Tsam. Finally, he saw a drum, a bone drum body inlaid with lapis lazuli, red coral, and hidden silver. There were also two yellow drum faces. An old lama, whose face could not be seen, dressed in luxurious clothes, was beating the small drum, flashing a creepy smile. Kionda trembled in fear. He screamed at the top of his voice, howling like a wolf. He struggled on the sharp gravel ground, letting the sharp gravel stab him until he was dripping with blood and leaving countless crisscrossed wounds on his body. It seemed that only such pain could remind him that he was still alive. Blood was smeared all over the simple altar. Kionda's resentment and anger sensed that there was an image of the heavenly demon King Bo Sun in the middle. Endless demons and endless anger made the red lotus of fire under Bo Sun's feet burn fiercely. The heavenly demons surrounded Kionda from all directions and chanted, resentment for the suffering of the world, anger for the heavenly demon king. Red lotus world, cleansing fire, burn all the lands of Buddha. In Master Hawthorne's manor, a dignified and noble head lama hurried over from Patala Palace with dozens of guardian lamas. The serfs and servants in the manor were so scared that they knelt down on the ground. Even the lama guru, invited by the housekeeper, hurriedly came out of the room used to entertain the distinguished guests and prostrated at the feet of the head lama. The head lama sat on the seat of honor and let the guardians carry Master Huakang's bed to him. Looking at the panicking crowd, he said in a dignified manner, "Head Lama Sang Buza has something to do and can't come. So he asked me to come here and talk about that demon Kionda." The housekeeper stepped out and said carefully, "That demon Kionda is Master's slave. When he was young, because he had the good appearance of a demon in disguise, he was bestowed as a servant to wear Master's clothes. But his heart is vicious and cunning. He has done many evil deeds, and even wanted to seduce Miss Solong Tsam. Master found out his disguise and wanted to punish him. After listening to what happened, the head lama and the guardians looked at each other mysteriously and communicated with each other through psyche power. It seems that the one who killed the two head lama and caused a murder in the Holy Land is not that Kionda. Huakang and his family were only cursed by some shallow curses. We need to catch that Kionda and torture him to see if he knows the demon who committed the murder." After saying that, he came in front of Huakang and gently smeared butter on Master Huakang's forehead. Together with the lamas beside him, he chanted Sanskrit. On the altar, Kionda's face suddenly showed a painful expression. The puppet wrapped in barley had already started to burn on its own. He felt the pain coming from the deepest part of his body. The summoned demon was mercilessly devouring his body. Countless amounts of greenish-black blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. The huge backlash brought about by the breaking of the curse was taking away his life. This process was extremely painful, 10 times more miserable than being skinned alive. But such pain could not make Kionda wail. He bit his tongue and pointed to the sky with a vague whimper, shouting in pain, "Buddha, look at this world. Why are the most innocent people always the first to suffer? Why are those harmful demons so high up in the sky? If I am guilty, I am willing to fall into Avicii, but the pure Kelsang is innocent. You talk about the reincarnation of good and evil, but her soul is imprisoned in a human skin drum forever. Where is karma? Where is the reincarnation of good and evil? Why can those masters who eat and harm people continue to enjoy in their afterlife? Why do the poor people have to suffer forever? Those evil demons who drink human blood and imprison the souls of kind-hearted people can harm us generation after generation. The sons of serfs will always be serfs, and the sons of nobles will always be nobles. Kionda's life force was draining away bit by bit. His hair became pale, and his face looked like an old man who was about to die. But he still cursed in the most resentful tone, no matter who, no matter if it is a demon or a god, no matter if it is evil or benevolent. As long as you give me the power to take revenge, I will give my soul to him. I, Kionda, swear with my soul. The last bit of his strength disappeared along with the oath. Through a little connection in his soul, Kionda saw Master Huakong lying on the bed, dragging his body that had just been lifted from the curse, kneeling piously at the feet of the head lama. He saw that although the Huakong family was still unwell, they could already greet the distinguished guests of Patala Palace warmly. He saw the head lama take out the familiar human skin drum and beat it. He felt him burning the familiar soul on the human skin drum. Following a little connection in his bloodline, he sensed his location. Kionda wanted to be angry, but he was already powerless to struggle. His body slowly slid down, knelt down, and fell into the muddy water. He watched as a blood-red spider lily grew in front of him. A sad voice sang, "The fire of karma burns the heavens, the Lord of wrath. I hope that all the injustices in the world can be raised. I hope that all the living beings in the world can roar and struggle. I hope that all the powerless men can be stained with blood. The Lord of wrath is the last dignity of all living beings. With an endless heart of resentment, the Lord of wrath burns the fire of karma. The comet attacks the moon. The white rainbow pierces the sun." Kionda felt a scorching flame erupt from his body. Using his hatred as fuel, it burned his body and life. The secret demon in his body howled and turned into fuel. Boundless power allowed Kionda to soar into the sky. Like a comet, he flew towards the place where his soul had sensed. In Huakang's house, the head lama suddenly opened his eyes and shouted, "Demon, you still dare to come here?" The head lama held the Vajra scepter in his hand, and his body suddenly grew 30 feet tall. Like a giant Vajra, he waved the scepter towards the sky. In the sky, the red lotus karma fire wrapped around a skeleton. It roared towards the sky, its eyes burning with blood-red flames. It waved its fists like hammers and fiercely smashed towards the lama. The Vajra of the esoteric Buddhism actually shattered like porcelain. The psyche power that thought that it was as pure as diamond burned fiercely when it encountered the fire of karma. Within a breath, the head lama's soul was drawn out by the fire of karma and burned into nothingness. The hands of the skeleton of karma fire were like knives, wantonly killing everything it saw. Chapter 573. Bai Mei, Zun Sheng, Zhi Gong, and Tian Meng were the almighties with the highest cultivation in this world. They released their golden body primordial spirit together and started chanting. On the golden peak of Mount Amei, a circle of Buddha's light was emitted from the peak, causing the pilgrims on the mountain to kneel down. In a Zen temple on the peak, there was a 7 treasures golden pagoda that supported the ground. The pagoda had 8 legs, and Zen Master Bai Mei and the others were sitting under it. The incense of sandalwood was faintly discernible, making them look solemn. Zen Master Bai Mei and a group of cultivators in disguise watched from the side. Chenong was among them. After a while, Zen Master Bai Mei retracted his Buddhist light and came before Zen Master Miao. He sighed and said, "I'm sorry. My senior and junior brothers and I used our Dharma eyes to see through the human world, but we couldn't find the location of the Demon River Styx. We only saw a red lotus world in the west with endless fire of karma, and Bo Sun's Dharma body sitting on the red lotus. Only then did we know that the river Styx isn't in Middle Earth, but somewhere in West Kunlun or Tibet." Seeing Zen Master Bai Mei's guilty expression, Zen Master Miao comforted him. "Zen Master, don't worry. The old Demon River Styx is already the leader of all the demons in this realm. His transcendence energy is immeasurable. It's normal for him to suffer setback. Zen Master Baimei shook his head and sighed. He added, even though we didn't find the old demon's exact whereabouts, I used my psyche power to sense the surroundings and sense the primordial spirit of the old demon Red Lotus, who is cultivating in seclusion in West Kunlun's sea of constellations. This demon cultivates our heretical Buddhism technique, the Future Constellation Sutra. He's considered the best expert in seeing through the secrets of heaven in this realm. He comes from the Devil sect, and River Styx wants to become the orthodox Devil path, which is a great threat to him. River Styx's cultivation base is unfathomable. He has achieved both the Sky Demon and the Blood Demon. He calls himself Bo Sun and Azura, the orthodox Devil path. He killed the Devil sect master of the Western Devil sect, Immortal Poison Dragon. The Devil sect fears him like a tiger. Of course, the Red Lotus wants to get rid of River Styx. I'm afraid he's even more determined than we are. Zen Master Miao, he nodded. Zen Master Baimei said, this demon doesn't dare to face Nether River himself, but he wants to use us to kill Old Demon Nether River. Moreover, Old Demon Nether River founded the Wave Sun demonic cult. He wants to rebuild the central demonic cult and suppress the Azura and Wave Sun orthodoxies. Old Demon Red Lotus is greedy, so he wants to take this opportunity to take over this orthodoxy and become the strongest in the demonic cult. He provided us with a piece of information, and it's quite believable. Chi, He, Spirit, and Bi, Tian Tian Dao God. Chi, the cult that appeared in Tibet today, the Heavenly Demon Wrath cult, was created by the Old Demon Styx River. This cult has a deep relationship with the Heavenly Demon Ecstasy cult. Now, it has become a thorn in the side of the Tantric sect. This sect does not have any other doctrines. It only teaches that when people can no longer bear it, there is no need to bear it anymore. With the power of the Sky Demon, it bestows upon the world's most insignificant and powerless people. When the sky is angry, blood will splash 5 steps away. In the name of revenge, it will vent the anger of all living things. Over the past few days in Tibet, several great nobles and lamas have been killed because of this. The Zampa nobles are in a state of panic, and their foundation is shaken. Many evildoers are in a state of panic and actually hide in Patala Palace. Spirit Master Miao, he sneered. The Tantric sect of the Outer Path doesn't practice morality and etiquette. They deserve this. Blood sacrifices to witchcraft, and they hurt people. Even if the Devil sect is strong in Tibet, the foreign monk Tuchuo is probably using human blood to create souls. If it weren't for the extreme way of doing things and their doctrines, we would have supported them. Zen Master Baimei smiled. The Outer Path doesn't know what's good for them. Even if they can get some mercy from Buddhism, they will still fall into the lower class. I hope that after this incident, they will turn to Buddhism as soon as possible. He pulled the topic back and said, we have investigated the Wrath sect. We know if what Red Lotus said is true or not. But there is another secret. Red Lotus said that he has been living in West Kunlun for many years. Because he is close to Tibet, he knows a lot about it. According to him, although the Tibetan Tantric Buddhism is mixed with witchcraft and is influenced by the Indian Brahmin Buddhism, the Buddhist doctrine is heterogeneous, and the foundation is filthy, but because it is closer to the Indian Buddhism, there are a few secret teachings. One of the volumes, The Scripture of Time, was passed down by Gautama Buddha in the Pure Land of Buddhism, Shambhala Dharma. It is the supreme scripture of the esoteric sect, which is not passed down in the Middle Earth. It records many secrets of the Pure Land of Buddhism, Shambhala, or clues to the land of Shambhala. Legend has it that this scripture tells the story of the universe when Mahavairokkana was passing down the teachings of Shambhala. It is called the time wheel hidden Manchala. It is divided into 3 parts. The first is the time wheel hidden Manchala of the 2-world fetus, which is kept in the Jokhang Temple. The second is the time wheel hidden Manchala of the heavenly fetus, which is kept in the Potala Palace. The third is the time wheel Vajra hidden Manchala, which is kept in the Zamlingi Holy Land. But the Zamlingi Holy Land was destroyed by river Styx a few days ago. The whole temple was wiped out. Red Lotus deduced that this demon must want to open the Shambhala Pure Land and find the true trace of Vairocana. In the Pure Land, he will fulfill his wish of Mahesvara, demon king Bo-sun, turning a demon into a Buddha and becoming the future Gautama Buddha, Amitabha. Hearing this, the monks like Zun Sheng and Zen master Ji Gong put their palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. If this person succeeds, it will be the Dharma ending tribulation. Countless Buddhists in the human world will turn into demons. It is really difficult for Buddhism. Buddha is merciful. Zen master Ji Gong said. Taoist master Miao I was also shocked by River Styx's great wish. She frowned and said, Senior Bai Mei, do you think Red Lotus can be trusted? Zen master Bai Mei sighed and said, it is impossible to say that Red Lotus did not use this to get rid of River Styx. But I know his background. The Future Constellation Sutra is the #1 heretical technique in Buddhism. It is too early for Red Lotus to use this to achieve enlightenment. Now that Tibetan esoteric Buddhism has become an heretical technique, I don't believe that this person did not do it. Besides the time wheel scripture, the foundation of Tibetan esoteric Buddhism is the Future Constellation Sutra. Many lamas were transformed from the devil cult. The Bon cult was the predecessor of the Western devil cult, a group of heretics mixed into Tibetan esoteric Buddhism. Buddha and devil were one, and they became the foundation of Tibetan esoteric Buddhism. Old Man Shur Pai, Red Lotus, Palace Master Shur Shan, and the others contributed a lot to Tibetan esoteric Buddhism's current situation. The heart of Red Lotus is probably a demon who entered the Buddhism sect and achieved the Ripple Tao fruit. However, old demon Mingi has already achieved the Ripple Tao fruit. If Mingi succeeds in his plan to take over Shambhala, he will be the first one to die. If Mingi wants to achieve the Future Constellation Sutra and become the demon Buddha Maitreya, the future Buddha demon, he must kill Red Lotus first. This is the battle of the Great Tao. There is no way to retreat. Therefore, those who want to kill Mingi must first target old demon Red Lotus. This time, Mingi might just be setting up a trap to lure old demon Red Lotus into a tribulation. Tribulation of the Future Constellation's Tribulation Sutra can also be improved. He can become Maitreya and establish the heavenly demon White Lotus cult. He can slowly become the future Buddha. In my opinion, River Styx's plan to attack Shambhala is real, and it is also real that he wants to kill Red Lotus. If Red Lotus acts rashly, Shambhala will turn into a trap and kill him. That's why Hong Lian informed us of this inside information. He wants to use us to do things while he himself can stay out of the matter and not take any risks. Zen Master Bai Mei's words made all the masters in the room nod. Chapter 574. In the Patala Palace, a few old lamas wearing the 5 bright crowns surrounded a fat, fair-skinned boy who was about 3 feet tall and said, Greetings, Banjita Chimbwa Fawang. Banjita Chimbwa Fawang smiled slightly. But from the mouth of the boy, there was an old voice saying, A few days ago, a demon wreaked havoc in the Zamlingi sacred land. 2 Sakin Fawang were killed, and the lamas and monks in the Zamlingi sacred land were also wiped out. This is a once-in-a-thousand-years Dharma calamity in our sect. After I, Guardian Vajra Fawang, and Red Lotus Fawang used Buddhist Dharma and mental power to search the boundless world, we finally found some traces of that demon. Azure Sea's constellation sees Red Lotus Fawang informed us that this person is a supreme demon transformed from a 10,000-year drought demon overseas. In the past, overseas, he broke the seal of the immortals of the heretical path and came out. He committed boundless killing, proving that he is transformed into the Mahesvara heavenly demon king, proving that he is the great Azura blood demon king. He has received the true teachings of Bo-sun and Ro. In this realm, he has performed the Yama of all worlds and is the first heavenly demon king who has seen all the laws. He is the enemy of Buddha, the demon ancestor. In the future, He will transform into a Buddha, destroy the Buddhist Dharma, and create a supreme heavenly demon in the Dharma ending period. All the lamas praise together, praise to the first demon ancestor of the heretical path. In the Dharma ending period, he transformed into a Buddha and became the first Dharma protector. With the blood of Buddha, he slandered the Buddhist Dharma and committed endless evil. Since the birth of the future Buddha, he has purged the heretical path, and after 12,000 tribulations, he can still achieve enlightenment. Banjida Chimbwa Fawang continued, "This demon's divine power is immeasurable, and his magic power is also immeasurable. Sakin and Sakin Fawang have already been infected by the demon and have sunk into the heretical path. In the future, when Vairocana transforms into the future Buddha, he will be able to subdue this demon. At that time, the two Sakin Fawang will be able to return to enlightenment. Now that Zamlingi's holy land has been breached, the time will embryo hidden mandala has fallen into the hands of this demon. The two holy lands of the Patala Palace and the Jakang Temple possess the Manshala of all heavenly embryos of time, and the Manshala of two realms of time. According to the Red Lotus Dharmaraja, it is related to the secret land of Shambhala, the pure land of Buddhism. The river Styx is the most powerful magic power among all the demons in this world. He wants to usurp the future Gautama's fruit position in Shambhala, the pure land of Mahavarokana, and turn the Buddhist land into a demonic land. This demon is so ambitious. He must obtain the secret of the Time Sutra from the two holy lands and create the time wheel hidden mandala. Only then can he find Shambhala in the great thousand worlds." One of the lamas questioned, "The secret of the Time Sutra is only a rumor in our sect. I heard that it is passed down by word of mouth in some sects and is not written in words. There is no detailed record in the scriptures. The secret of Shambhala is passed down in our sect. The Dragon Tree Bodhisattva and the Time Sutra have not explained it. How could Red Lotus Dharma King and River Styx confirm this secret? Could this be River Styx's scheme? The demon is cunning and sinister. Although the Red Lotus Dharmaraja is loyal to our sect, he is still a member of the demonic Tao. How can we easily believe his one-sided story? Why don't we let him show us some evidence so that we can suppress the River Styx demon?" Banjida Chimbwa Fawang closed his eyes and pondered for a moment. Then he said, "There are indeed some doubts. The demon River Styx and the Red Lotus Fawang have a dispute over the position of Taoism. They are enemies that will not rest until one of them is dead. We also have to be wary of him using us. However, the demon River Styx has come in a menacing manner. He has the intention of overthrowing our sect, killing the monks, and destroying the temples. In the place where we preach, he has transformed the evil gods of the unorthodox path, using the heavenly demon illusory realm to lure the followers of the Buddha. This kind of action that slandered the Dharma cannot be easily forgiven. I have already discussed with the guardian deity to request for a few of the sect's most precious treasures. When he gives himself away, we will join forces with the hidden Dharma kings of Tibet to convert him and turn him into another protector above Mahakala." Lama Luo sang Chaoji Jianzhen. Luo sang Chaoji Jianzhen shouted. The old Lama who was first in line replied, "Luo sang Chaoji Jianzhen is here. This demon is a great enemy of the old demons of the devil cult. You have some friendship with the old demons of West Kunlun. Are you willing to pay them a visit and ask them to cooperate with us at the crucial moment to eliminate this demon together?" Banjida Chimbwa Fawang instructed. Lama Luo sang Chaoji Jianzhen nodded and replied, "Yes, Fawang." River Styx walked barefoot on the rugged mountain path. It had been 10 days since he preached the heavenly demon wrath cult, and the situation in Tibet was actually more or less stable. Although there were many nobles who had done many evil deeds who were punished, there were even more nobles who were clearly evil, yet they did not face the resistance of the serfs who were bullied and tortured by them, especially those lamas. Even though in River Styx's eyes they were unforgivable and cruel to the extreme, they were still respected by the serfs. Those numb and ignorant serfs were actually very devout. Some of them even dared to wield their swords against the nobles, but they lost their courage when they were scolded by the lamas. If not for that, the lamas of the tantric sect would not be so calm. On the other hand, when the venerable wrath cult was spread to Sichuan, it set off a wave of resistance. The tenant farmers and poor people in the remote areas who suffered hardship rose up together to attack. In just a few days, they had slaughtered almost all the landlords and local tycoons in western Sichuan, creating a glorious record of not a single landlord remaining in the tens of thousands of miles of western Sichuan. If it was not for the fact that when River Styx converted the venerable wrath cult into red lotus karmic fire, only those who had a deep hatred could ignite it, River Styx would have praised, Han people will never be slaves and will never be humiliated. Or would he be surprised that the world was so broken, that there were actually so many tycoons who had a firm stand in the heavenly abode of Sichuan who were cruel and exploitative? Or would he be sad that the Tibetan serfs were numb and too docile after being trained? In places where personal relationships were the most oppressive, the religion would be more prosperous. In places where culture and civilization were more backward, the religion would be more stable and irreplaceable. India, Tibet, and the Ukrainian plain of Russia were the most prosperous places for religion during the Middle Ages in Europe. To think that I, River Styx, am committed to letting all living beings return to themselves and be selfish. It would be best if everyone in the world loved themselves the most, regardless of whether they were close or distant. If all living beings were selfless, how could they be free? The righteous path in this world only requires the oppressed to selflessly contribute and worship, and the obedient to be bullied and exploited. The Sky Demon cult's first priority is to get rid of such lies, so that the people in the world will know the principle of heaven and earth are big, but they are the greatest. Plucking a hair to benefit the world is not enough. If River Styx continued forward, it would be the uninhabited highlands, far away from the densely populated areas of Tibet and into the West Kunlun Mountains. This place was ancient and primitive, still retaining the primitive species from ancient times. There were all kinds of ferocious beasts and strange beasts lurking in the landscape. Mountains and rivers crisscrossed each other, poisonous swamps, constellation seas, and snowy mountains. It was a forbidden area for civilization, but a paradise for cultivators. Only those who cultivated the Tao could survive in such a place. Kunlun was the land of immortals since ancient times. There were many cultivators in seclusion in East and West Kunlun. Not to mention the famous Old Devils, there were countless senior immortals living in seclusion here. This place was 10 times wider than the Great Ming Dynasty's territory. There were countless treasures and cultivation resources. If it was not for the lack of population, it would not be able to provide for the big sects to pass down their legacies. This was truly a holy land for cultivation. Chapter 575. River Styx calculated with his fingers, the secret of Shambhala is probably just a legend. Even the lamas who obtained the Sutra of Time don't know if it is real or not. What I want is for them to not know. I am searching for the secret of Shambhala with great fanfare, and those lamas are skeptical. Hee. Most of them don't believe it. Red Lotus knows that he is no match for me, so he wants to get rid of me with the help of others. That's why he pretends to believe it and becomes the most enthusiastic one. I don't think White Brow and the other monks believe it either. They just can't find me, so they pretended to believe it. Speaking of which, I don't think any of us believe it completely, but we are all pretending to believe it. Those lamas are trying to lure me out and use this opportunity to purify me. At the same time, they are also wondering if there is really a clue leading to Shambhala. Red Lotus wants to use this opportunity to drag the righteous and the esoteric cult into the trap and use them to fight against me. White Brow and the others are just trying to lure the snake out of its hole and wait and see what happens. As for me, I am the one who planned the Shambhala disaster. Only I know that it is a trap, but with the help of the 4 sides, even if it is fake, we can make it real. Now that the situation is set, everyone is looking for this Shambhala Buddhist kingdom. With the support of a May, Buddhism, esoteric cult, and the evil cult who doesn't believe that it is real. Under the guidance of fate, the four sides will gradually gather at this so-called Shambhala and fight it out. That's my goal, but it's still a little lacking. Although there are traces of the chief god space behind old demon Red Lotus, we still can't be sure that it's him among those old demons, so we might as well drag them all in. If they accidentally die of injustice, they can't blame anyone else even if they're not lucky enough. River Styx landed on a mountain shaped like Lianhua in West Kunlun. He looked at the terrain with satisfaction, then moved the earth veins and changed the terrain, turning the mountains into a valley surrounded by 8 snowy mountains that looked like Lianhua petals. In the middle of the valley was a snowy lake. River Styx cast a spell and excavated a jade vein in the Kunlun Mountains. He used the best Kunlun jade to make a wide platform and sank the jade mirror into the water. Then, he purified the Buddhist treasure he took from Zamlingi's holy land with his supreme psychic power and turned it into a treasure of the sky demon. The surface of the mirror was still faintly glowing with Buddhist light and the fragrance of sandalwood. However, the inside of the mirror had already been eroded by the demonic thoughts of the picture of gods and demons. However, the essence of the Devil Buddha was the same, and with the help of Mingi, a mighty person who could connect the two paths, it was very well hidden and hard to be seen by ordinary people. After the disguise was done, Mingi first put a few medium Buddhist treasures into the restriction of the jade mirror in the lake. Then, he took out a lotus throne and used the Dharma restriction to seal it. Next, he sealed a few well-prepared and powerful Buddhist treasures into it and placed them in the deepest part of the jade mirror. Finally, he used the T-Arhut boundary to seal a page of Buddhist scripture that he wrote himself in the reflection of the moon in the jade mirror. It formed a classic layout of a senior's treasure hidden in the jade mirror at the bottom of the lake, treasures in the mirror, and scriptures in the moon. Mingi knew that he would not be able to deceive a Mei sect, devil sect, or Zen sect, esoteric sect with this method. But the person he was dealing with was different. He only wanted to deceive West Kunlun's secluded rogue cultivator Devil Head to earn another sum of money. He did not need to make it seem so real. Now that all four sides had entered the trap, River Styx was the bait for the other three sides. The so-called Shambhala was just a group of rogue cultivators. The appearance of such a treasure was enough to attract a large number of people to fight for it. Not to mention that River Styx had carefully created a few Dharma treasures to counter some of the old demons of West Kunlun based on the information he knew. He did not need to worry about them not jumping into his trap. After River Styx finished his preparations, he left West Kunlun. 7 days later, the secluded cultivators near the Lianhua treasure location in West Kunlun, as well as a group of old demons and rogue immortals with stronger magical power, could faintly sense that a treasure was about to appear in West Kunlun. Those with stronger magical power could calculate that this seemed to be the sign of the birth of the demon-subduing treasure left behind by the Indian monk Vajraji Phawang before he transformed into a rainbow. A few days later, a faint Buddhist light could be seen in this place, covering dozens of miles of the vast land. Countless cultivators in all directions were alarmed. After searching for a few days, someone finally found the lake surrounded by Lianhua. In the early morning, a few strange lights flew out from the lake and flew in all directions. The rogue cultivators nearby either used their Dharma treasures to intercept them, or they had deep fates that allowed the strange lights to shoot over automatically. They all intercepted a few Dharma treasures that turned into light. As expected, they were all very spiritual and extraordinary in nature. Some connoisseurs even calculated that this Dharma treasure was only the most heterogeneous of the treasures left behind by Vajraji Phawang. It was a treasure left behind by a fated person when he ascended to the Western Paradise. The true core Dharma treasure, the Taoist book, was still left in the treasure location, waiting for the successor who could inherit his mantle to come and retrieve it. When this rumor spread, the number of cultivators who came and went increased by 10 times. At this time, River Styx had already left West Kunlun. When the golden lotus treasure appeared, The person who obtained it would be bewitched by the essence of the sky demon in the Dharma treasure, thinking that he had obtained the clue to the treasure of Shambhala. River Styx never thought that such a secret could be kept for long. When the related news spread, the Shambhala Buddhist kingdom that he personally guided would attract a large number of sacrifices and cannon fodder. When that time came, wouldn't it be perfect to catch all of them in one fell swoop? At this time, River Styx had already arrived outside the Xiazong Temple in Shanghai. This temple was the ancestral court of the Yellow Sect and had an extraordinary status. However, it was far away from the core of Lhasa esoteric sect. It was the best place to kill people and set fire to the temple. There's no other way. If I don't kill another Dharma king, how will those lamas know that I'm serious? If I don't kill a Dharma king, how will they be serious? If I don't be serious, how can the show go on? Do those old lamas in Patala Palace really think that I'm joking? Although Shambhala is fake, killing you and stealing the scriptures is real. River Styx sighed. We have to kill a few important people to show that Shambhala is still a powerful organization. When more people die and their identities become more important, even those who wouldn't believe it before will believe it now. If I kill one of the two Dharma kings, I'm afraid that Mauname will suspect that it's real. River Styx waved his hand and opened the celestial demon painting, turning it into a floating heaven that covered the temple. His swords, Yuan-Tu and Avicii, were unsheathed and hummed. Two lamas from the Xiazong Temple lifted their Vajra pestle and flew into the air on golden lotuses. They shouted, "Who dares to enter the Xiazong Temple? What is your intention?" Chapter 576. The Legend of Shu Mountain World is adapted from Huanju Master's Legend of Shu Mountain Swordsman. On the basis of retaining some characters, it recreates the Yuquan blood demon and other villains. It narrates a battle of life and death between the righteous and the Yuquan blood demon. 200 years ago, Kunlun Mountain sect Master Lomun died at the hands of the Yuquan blood demon, and her disciple, Xin Tianzong, is one of the main characters in the plot. The time we enter is when the Yuquan blood demon first attacked Mauname, and the time we enter is when the Wutai sect is destroyed. Of course, the Wutai sect in the Legend of Shu Mountain is not the villains in the original work, but a group of monks. What follows is the plot of the Yuquan blood demon's first attack. Our mission is to ensure that the Yuquan blood demon enters the Chiyu blood cave, and the mission of the opposing Pinglai team is probably to stop the Yuquan blood demon from entering the blood cave. A white man explained in standard Mandarin to the Samsara travelers in strange clothes in front of him. This is a confrontational mission. We can't compromise with the Pinglai team. Although we have 3 teams here, if we are not united, we will never be a match for the Pinglai team, who has the advantage. After all, we are at a disadvantage in the plot this time. I suggest we sign an offensive and defensive alliance contract to coordinate the conflict of interests. A sinister-looking man interrupted. Andre, let's not talk about why we Easterners should cooperate with you, a Westerner who practices the Eastern Truchi system. Let's talk about our mission. We only need to maintain the original plot. We should go with the flow and have the advantage. Why is it a disadvantage in your words? Luo Bawang, it's better not to interrupt Mr. Andre. A seductive woman smiled and said, "We all know that you were beaten half to death by Qilin revered martial artist Lu Li in the Wind Cloud world, and you are still injured. That's why you have to mix with us, the Samsara teams that you originally disdained. But your teammates are all dead, and there are only a few newcomers left. Do you want to face the Pinglai team alone?" Pu Jingji. The woman's words seemed to have touched Luo Bawang's sore spot. The atmosphere between the two sides instantly became tense. However, Pu Jingji's side had more than 10 people, while Luo Bawang only had 3 or 4 newcomers like cowards. It was clear that what the woman said was true. Seeing that the two of them were about to fall out with each other, Andre could only force a smile and stand between them. He said, "Now that you're at a disadvantage, don't fight amongst yourselves." In the plot of Shu Mountain Legend, the reason why Yuquan Blood Demon succeeded was largely because he attacked when he was unprepared. Now that the Pinglai team is on the other side, if they tell us the whereabouts of the Chiyu Blood Cave in advance, Our mission will be to fight against the top master of the righteous side, the long-brow spiritual master. I don't think any of you want to try, right? Andre's words were fair and just, but his position was clearly biased towards Pu Jingji's side, which was a subtle indication of his attitude. Most of the team members behind him were also siding with Pu Jingji's team Pusan. The meaning behind their actions was self-evident. Seeing this, Luo Bawang cursed in his heart. These Koreans are indeed dogs raised by white people. If it wasn't for Lu Li severely injuring me in the wind and cloud battle, causing me to suffer damage that not even a main god could heal, I wouldn't be afraid of Team Peng Lai by myself. He was clearly just an ordinary low-star reincarnation warrior before. Why did he become so terrifying after a trip to the Tang Empire? Luo Bawang thought of the man in his memory who was burning with dark red blood flames, like a god or a devil, and felt a bone-piercing fear emanating from his heart. That nightmarish shadow still lingered in his mind. The four Samsara teams of the same level as his Devil Wheel team had joined forces to kill him, and there was also Sakura, a big boss in the middle stage of the wind and cloud world, who had made a move. However, they were all easily destroyed by that man alone. Clearly, there was still a glimmer of hope before. When Lu Li and Sakura clashed, they were both at a disadvantage. However, after entering the Lingyun cave and devouring the fire Qilin in front of them, he transformed into a terrifying man with horns that looked like the reincarnation of a Qilin. In an instant, he possessed terrifying strength that was almost like cheating. Less than 1 out of 10 people could survive that battle. Although Luo Bawang had always proclaimed that it was a fight to the death and that he barely survived, he actually knew in his heart that he was powerless in front of that man. In the end, all he had to do was wave his hand, and he could kill all of them. However, for some reason, Lu Li let these people go and only left indelible scars in Luo Bawang's body. This energy was as hot and sinister as lava, full of demonic nature. According to the main god's appraisal, it should be the demonic true qi of the fire Qilin in the Lingyun cave, which was mutated by Lu Li's devouring. Because it was a type of demonic curse power, even the main god's healing ability couldn't remove it. Luo Bawang had no choice but to enter the plot world with this power that constantly infected his spirit, causing his strength to plummet. Even Team Pusan, which he looked down on in the past, dared to taunt him. With this thought in mind, Luo Bawang felt a searing pain coming from the wound on his chest. He couldn't help but frown, and his body swayed unsteadily. He saw Andre, the burly white man in front of him, suddenly look into Pu Zhengji's eyes, and they both revealed an imperceptible smile that had an unclear meaning. Luo Bawang keenly noticed this, and his heart felt like it had fallen into an abyss, emitting waves of obscure, killing intent. At this time, both sides seemed to have let go of their hostility, and the atmosphere between each other was greatly relaxed. Pu Jingji suddenly smiled and said, "Since we still want to cooperate, why don't we be more honest with each other? The Yuquan Blood Demon's whereabouts are a mystery. Although he has a subordinate like Crimson Corpse Lord, he is still a loner. It's not difficult for us to seek refuge with him, but how to find him is a problem that is neither too big nor too small." Luo Bawang sneered and said, "You don't have to worry about this. I have a way. You should think of a way to find out about the Peng Lai team. And Andre, I know you're very good at digging out plots. You have to pay the corresponding amount of information to get the whereabouts of the Yuquan Blood Demon from my hands." After Luo Bawang separated from the two, his face darkened, and he thought to himself, "These people can't be trusted. It's better to be on guard and be prepared." But he didn't notice that the wound on his chest was emitting an obscure demonic aura. The reason why Luo Bawang was so confident was that his heaven's sun gazing at air, which was enhanced by martial arts, had the effect of observing the fortune of heaven and earth and observing all kinds of mysterious and invisible traces in the world. It was a very mysterious auxiliary skill. But before he could find the traces of the Yuquan Blood Devil by following the traces, he felt a thick blood aura rolling over from the horizon like a blood river. Countless skeletons gathered together in the sky and the earth. Wrapped by the demonic aura that was so thick that it seemed to have substance, they swept toward him. Luo Bawang immediately felt that something was wrong, and he shouted, "Elder Netherspring, I admire you very much, Elder Netherspring, and I have come here to tell you a big secret of Amei." To his surprise, the Yuquan blood demon only sneered and said, "In that case, you can offer your primordial spirit to me." "Amei? If I get the demonic aura hidden in your body, do I still need to care about that damn white-brow spiritual master? I will be invincible in the world." Ha ha! Countless men and women and all kinds of voices overlapped and laughed wildly in a strange tone. Only then did Luo Bawang realize that things were not looking good. He was just about to activate his life-saving tools when he suddenly felt a tearing pain in his chest. A demon with horns on its head had gathered all the true qi in his body and was wantonly plundering his blood essence, soul, and everything else. It was flowing out of the wound on his chest. Luo Bawang's body had become a withered corpse, and the demon's shadow could not wait to merge with the Yuquan blood demon. In the sea of consciousness, the Yuquan blood demon was still laughing excitedly at first. But when he touched the demonic aura and the shadow that contained infinite demonic aura, he screamed in fear as if he had seen his natural enemy. The shadow swallowed the gift without hesitation. The Yuquan blood demon's huge body melted in a bloody light. Gradually, it shrank into a blood cocoon and landed in a remote place in the mountains. After a long time, a hand struggled out of the blood cocoon, and then a young man walked out. The blood cocoon turned into a black robe and draped over him. Judging by his appearance, he looked exactly like the old demon River Styx in the world of Shu Mountain. Is it the Yuquan blood demon? The body of the blood demon is somewhat compatible with me. The young man looked around and said with a smile, "I, River Styx, was born with the path of the Azura blood demon, but I've been focusing on the path of the heavenly demon. I wonder if the blood river array and the supreme demon body of the great Azura have become rusty? The world that this master god created by stealing the origin of the world of Shu Mountain is a bit interesting.